Welcome in, Smite fans, to the Cryptic Zoo Smite League. It has been a long season, folks. Not only season 9, but for the inaugural season of the Cryptic Zoo League as well. And we could not be left with a better matchup to put a bow on things. It is the Tundra Division Finals. Daddy's Daycare going up against the undefeated Molly's Demons in a grueling best of 5 match for all the marbles. My name is Frog, and I am joined today by Kaizo. And Kaizo, I could not be more pumped for the action.
I myself couldn't either, Frog, because I really want to see what this Daddy's Daycare team is capable of bringing. I myself played against this team at one point during the league season, and they were a very formidable opponent, one of the few that took a game off of us. But I mean, going the other way, like you said, undefeated is Molly's Demons so far. So they certainly have a chip on their shoulder going into this one, and I think that they very well may just be your favorite to win it all, Frog.
Yeah, no question. Seed 1, Molly's Demons, going up against Seed 3, Daddy's Daycare. So certainly the favorite, although slight favorite going into this one. But we are going to be able to jump right into picks and bans, or albeit just picks in this particular case. Unfortunately, error coming to us, no bans on the screen. So we are just going to get a chance to look the 5-man rosters here for either side. And I gotta ask you off the bat. I mean, there's no better question. Looking at these comps, who are you favoring just based on the compositions?
Well, it's a lot of information to take in, right, all at once,
Sure.
because I always start with the supports, because I really do think that support picks right now are so incredibly important in the meta. You've got your top 3 or 4 supports like Yamoja and Ymir, both 2 of those, and I think that we've got both of them on screen here, whereas some of the other ones kind of feel like they're not quite as strong as any of the other options available to you. So I think that they're just about even in that category. And then going down the list, I mean, this Guan Yu, we've been seeing so much of it in Season 9, and it continues to impress game after game, making such good use out of those Fablest hoops, as does this Yamoja. So it's a very balanced draft, Frog, and I think that it's going to come down to how good is Zotz on this Osiris, because this is definitely the driving force of this Daddy's Daycare composition. If Zotz can't get off to a comfortable lead, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for Daddy's Daycare to really fight into what Molly's Demons has with this more late game oriented composition.
No, and I think it's really pointing to both junglers here. I think Zot's likely to be in that jungle role with the 2 warriors on that side. And I would have loved to see the picks and bans, because we have this Thor coming through on the other side. A highly contested pick, that semi-global ultimate coming through, plenty of setup being provided for Entric on this Scylla as well. So I do, I can see the team fight in my head. I can see how this composition is going to come together and be able to fight on the order squad. My sort of question is, very similar to you. How aggressive can you be, and how aggressive really do you want to be? I mean, what lane? It sort of seems like your pressure is kind of going to be forced maybe through the dual lane with a slower pick in that mid lane,
right,
like the Baba Yaga, but I could see him going to either side lane here.
Yeah, I do think that the fight specifically is going to be fairly neutral in this mid lane. Both of these characters, Scylla and Baba Yaga, late game titans, but certainly not one that you would expect to get particularly active, particularly early. I think that both of these characters are more than likely going to pick up a stacking item apiece, if not 2, and pretty much just be content to farm those out and then get maybe a penetration item before we start fighting. I think that if you're considering one versus the other for which can fight earlier, my money's probably on the Scylla, and Tricked has a little bit more crowd control that's a little bit more relevant earlier on than Baba Yaga does, because, I mean, Baba's mostly just damage. Like, there's some decent survivability there, but for the most part, you're really just dealing damage with this character. And you don't really feel the impact of that until a little bit later on in the game when you get some of those items online, you get a little bit more power to swing around. So my money's going to be on mid lane being a fairly reasonable stalemate, but if we do see any action there, then keep your eye on Intricked.
Yeah, I mean, in the mid lane, we see both of these later game mages, as you mentioned. I'm a little bit worried about this dual lane matchup specifically for the Demons, right? This order side, you do have that Ymir, which can bring a lot of pressure in the lane. just by itself, but when you compare the matchup that you're getting on the hunter role, right? You're considering top two, maybe top three hunters in the game. Certainly for this Kernos, Ishtar likely banned out, right? So you're not able to necessarily pick that pressure god back into the Kernos, and instead opting for this more team fight focused pick in the Hu Yi. And I'm just, especially with almost matching the pressure, if not surpassing the pressure, bring the emoji onto the table for the dual lane as well. I mean, this could be some early fighting that we're predicting over in the long lane.
Yeah, and we just had the luxury of getting to hear Killjoy1325 and his insight yesterday on the Salt Scuffed Scrim series on twitch.tv/callmekaizo. And Kernanos is apparently, for Killjoy's money, the best ADC in the game if you're not picking Ishtar. And reasonable to assume that in this one, Ishtar taken off the table again. We didn't get to see the bans, but it's hard to believe that that one would just slip between the cracks here and you'd go to something like the Hu Yi instead if you had that one available to you. But Kernos is certainly very strong in his own right. Like, it is very difficult to fight into this character. He's got a ton of burst damage and also some relevant CC and healing in his kit to keep him in that lane and keep him fighting a little bit longer than his opposition might, because Hu Yi is difficult to burst down. He's difficult to lock down, but I think that Kernos definitely has the tools to fight back into what he's got available.
Well, we have no much longer to wait. No, we're right into the game. We are ready to get right into game number one, folks. Daemons on the left side of your screen, Daddy's Daycare on the right side of your screen, just up there as Daddy. I don't know if I feel comfortable with that, Kaizo. I mean, that's just straight to the point. But can't argue with the name. Can't argue with the dominance that name brings when you're looking across the screen on the opponent's side. And I mean, off the bat, everybody is into the game, got their items built, and the first thing that I'm looking at is perhaps already you see the slow starter, perhaps, or slower starter we get on Desto on the Thor versus the much faster, much more aggressive starter we're getting on Zats. And I think that mirrors exactly what you were mentioning earlier.
Yep.
Expect some aggression out of this Osiris.
Yeah, the Osiris is pretty much going to need to run down this Thor for the foreseeable future. Like, I'm talking the first 5 to 7 levels, just while he has the chance to, because Thor probably outscales this Osiris as the game goes later. I think it's going to be very difficult for Zats to match not only the rotation potential of this Thor, but also the ability to just straight up kill one person in a CC chain. Osiris just doesn't do that. Like, he's going to bully you out of wherever you're trying to stand, get you away from whatever you're trying to farm, but if you're something like, I don't know, for example, a Scylla, it's going to be very difficult for Zats to get those kills in the 1v1 just because the jump is so incredibly impactful in that engagement. And being able to wait out the stun, jump away from it, completely outrange that Lord of the Afterlife ultimate, that makes it very difficult for these kills to go down. But the thing is, he's got incredible level 1 through 5 pressure, so you're going to see a lot of Zats just walking down whatever's in front of him, and this Conceptor really makes it so that nobody really has an opportunity otherwise.
Interesting difference off the bat from these two junglers as well in terms of pathing. We see Thor, Desto head over towards that mid lane, try and get a little bit of extra pressure for the Scylla. Meanwhile, coming over here to the right side to secure the totem, despite the fact that is Cullen Zot's not using the mana from the totem, so maybe not really getting it for that, but perhaps looking to put a little bit of pressure on the Guan Yu early on, right? Known to be a little bit of a mana-hungry god, so perhaps we see that pressure over there, but I think, early on in the first 2 minutes, you do see him head over this mid lane and losing this 2v2 trade off the bat.
Yeah, and that's just going to be the push pressure that the Baba Yaga has, because right now you're not really trading out damage, it's just who takes more damage from the minions, and it's certainly going to be the team with the Scylla, because even with the buffs and even with additional true damage on the minions, it's still fairly difficult for Scylla to clear early on, whereas Baba Yaga has a lot more tools to effectively clear the wave. You can see her on tower line just clearing that one out and shoving that one in, so it's pretty much expected, but it doesn't make it any more feel feels good, man, for Zots and the rest of the team. But hang on, right lane HD Clutch.
Yeah, health pot ticking, and it will be the Blinking. Zots here to save the day, but HD Clutch picks up the first blood and will secure the solo kill for the squad. Won't be having the blue invaded after the fact, as both junglers are there to secure that there's no pressure after the fact. But the Guan Yu, after not even having the totem pressure early on, Zots maybe taking a little bit too much damage from the wave.
Zots or Zotes? Because we're gonna have to be a little more careful with that
You're
one,
right. Zotes taking the
Believe it or not, I've got a little bit of lore for you. I'll drop some knowledge on you based on this one. So Zotes is actually Sandman Sam, who changed his name because he heard a caster pronounce this Osiris's name as Zotes, and he said, you know what? I could make this much more confusing. So he just changed his name to make our lives harder.
Oh, that is classic Sam, truly. I mean, doing everything he possibly can while exerting the least effort possible. Very, very classic Sandman Samuel. Also classic Sandman Samuel to be getting soloed.
Yeah.
Over there in the first 2 minutes of the game. But we do get another kill coming through. That will be Dot. Looks like he picked one up right as, or excuse me, I'm totally blind. It was a trade. Over in the solo lane.
There you go.
And your comment on Sandman Samuel has completely lost my brain in the weeds.
That was the point, man. You really got there in the end.
No, we really did. We really did. But I'm interested in how the builds are coming through over in
Yeah.
that right lane. Because, I mean, talk to me about this Soul Eater rush from Kakolin.
Right, so I was going to start out by looking at the starter items, because I do think that the Tainted Steel is very, very good, especially in this game in particular. This is an item that didn't see any pickup pretty much at all, and then suddenly people realized that both of the upgrades for it are kind of insane, and people have been putting a lot more priority on it. But now looking at the Soul Eater specifically, that does one thing. You're not Zots, you're Frog. There's two Zots, and there might be one fewer Royal here.
Oh my goodness, the damage coming out from both ultimates there in the dual lane utilized to take down the support. And this ultimate Thor going up in the air, and Villadon not in range of this Kernos, who's going to retreat into the jungle corridor, but the good wall will seal him off.
Got out?
He dashes through both walls, just barely a gap left through there. Unfortunately not able to lock down Control Alt E, so it'll just be the pick onto the support.
Yeah, well, we'll go back over to the solo lane here while we've got a chance, and I think Zots is thinking just about the same thing here. Going to try to invade this one, and I do believe that was stolen away from the Guan Yu, which is pretty impactful against this character that very mana hungry, very blue buff dependent, so good pickup there from Zots. But going back to the Soul Eater, man, this is going to give Kakolin a ton of damage, and it makes it just impossible to lose lane as Kakolin. Like, the one thing that this character doesn't have is healing. He's got dummy pressure, he's got crazy damage, and he's got insane survivability. The one thing he didn't have in his kit was sustain. And once you give him this Soul Eater, that takes that completely out of the equation.
A little bit of an invade here coming through from Daddy's Daycare. They will not only get it off, but it looks like they'll get out with their lives cleanly, unless Intricked over here will force the sprint out of Royal, but off the mark with the Sikkim, so won't be able to lock down any more pressure on this left-hand side. And that's good looks from Daddy's Daycare. They managed to pick up both buff invades on either of the side lanes, and they've been able to maintain about a half-level lead here for both the ADC and the solo lane. I think it was Zotes who hit level 7 and is now level 8 over HD Clutch, despite being taken down for first blood.
And that's a lot in part due to the fact that Zots has kind of been leaning on this side of the map. I know that these two like to work together a lot, so that's why we saw that invade earlier on that blue buff, and a little bit more attention paid to this side of the map, because Zots he wants to do this for the rest of the game, if anybody's going to allow him to. Without outside intervention, Zots is very confident to just take whatever engagement he can get against HD Clutch. And it's going to have to come down to Desto or Bo the Farmer on the support to really stop that. But hang on, we got stuff going on in mid, Frog.
finding another bit of pressure in this mid 3v3. These three have been together, seemingly trying to push down whatever opportunity they can as they try to find a little bit more in the mid lane. But off the mark with that I'm a monster, able to get out of there is Paragon, and once again secure some of this neutral farm in the form of the side camps. And now look at this rotation over the ADC onto the oracles there, while tech support is just going to be farming over in that left hand side. They're really focused on taking whatever farm they can away, and despite that, you know, they haven't been able to hold on.
Come on.
And HD Clutch finds the solo kill against all odds.
Sam, I'm really doing my best to work with you here and say that the Soul Eater, it's gonna make you immortal, there's nothing he can do, you just have everything available to you, and you can't just turn around and get soloed after I just said that you're gonna have the best time ever in lane. It just can't work like that. You gotta work with me. I'm trying to gas you up, homie.
Oh, look at that damage mitigated too. Almost 3,000 ahead of his lane opponent thanks to that defense first item. Defense gonna outtrade offense 9 times out of 10. And you see it come through there in the solo lane. Now 0-2 for Zotes. Still maybe holding on to a little bit of an XP lead, but you'd expect Guan Yu to take a short advantage there as we do head over. Anvilodon lands, splits the uprights between the two dual laners here, but a good wall this time, successful in locking down, but he manages to trade out his life for the opposing supporter, opposing jungler rather. His support now gets taken down by Zots, and it's a 4-man rotation towards this left-hand side. Both mid laners here a little bit late, not able to get involved, but a 2-for-1 in favor of Daddy's Daycare.
Yeah, and it's been Zots, you know, fairly quiet so far in this one, but finding the value wherever he can. He's been a part of 3 of the 3 kills that Daddy's Daycare have so far, and I wouldn't say that he's been the driving force of any of them necessarily, like I thought that he might have based on the team composition, but he's certainly been showing up when necessary and getting the value that he needs to for his team, and that's come to about the tune of a 700 gold lead, which when we're talking about gold leads, Frog, I don't think of 700 as particularly oppressive by any stretch of the imagination.
Really?
But it's a start for sure. It's definitely something that you can build off of. And this is a team for Daddy's Daycare that is going to need a foothold into this game. And I think they just might have gotten one.
I mean, I think I might be F6 if at 10
it's
minutes.
700?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty oppressive. 700 is a pretty big number. You know,
yeah, I actually changed my mind. I think that they should maybe just give up on this one and go to next one.
It might be a GG go next. That being said, they are up in kills, and that is something to hold on to at the very least. But I mean, we got to give a little bit of props there to Control Alt Eat. The amount of damage he's able to do in that moment while being dove to not only stay alive for as long as he needed to, but I mean, that if anything, has brought over more attention to the Kerneros. I mean, they want to take this guy down cleanly the next time they're ganking. And with the amount of pressure that they've been putting on the left side, I would not expect that to come, you know, later on in the game. Like, I definitely think they're going to be continuing to look to put pressure on this left-hand side.
And it's not just them either. I do think that it's both of these teams are paying an, I don't want to say unhealthy, but uncommon amount of attention to the left side of the map, especially considering the fact that right lane has felt very volatile so far in this one. I think that every single time we've panned over here, somebody has been jumping in or somebody's been low HP, getting soloed, whatever the case may be. If I'm the jungler, I'm thinking, maybe I want to get involved in this, but it seems like both Molly's Demons and Daddy's Daycare are confident in just banking on their ADCs and trying to get some kind of pressure around that Gold Fury pit. But, you know, of course, as I say that, Daddy's Daycare takes their attention to the Pyromancer.
This objective is getting pulled already down pretty low. Looking for the steal, and Demons do take it away. And now they're pushing forward onto the fight. On the horse is HD Clutch, and Anvilodon just out of range to secure the kill on the jungler, but it may be room for a turnaround. I'm a Monster gets forced for the defense and is off the mark to get the damage through. And in Trick does not have the dash, so is not able to get away, and Desto has used the hammer aggressively as well. Zotes picks up the double kill, and now Bo the Farmer, trapped between four members at the Fire Giant pit, will lose his life in a 3-for-0 in favor of the Red Squad.
That was a sick Yamoja ult, and just a little bit of an overcommitment from the Demons onto that objective. They do steal away the Pyromancer, and then they got a little too big for their britches. We saw Thor coming out, going very deep, trying to last hit that kill onto Zotz, and after that, everybody was just kind of scrambling, looking for something, and now Guan Yu looking to contest this gold.
Desperately trying to slow them team down and may pick up Zotz as a consolation prize, maybe more than a consolation prize as the damage comes through. A huge triple bounce next up onto the red squad, and Desto comes through, and Trick comes through, and all four take down a kill in the fight for a 4-for-0 and a Gold Fury. What an answer back from the Demons.
My god, man, somebody clip that and tag X support on Twitter, because that is the craziest Huyi Ricochet I have ever seen in my entire life. Two people just cease to exist because X Sup is just that good at geometry. Like, my man studied up, brought the protractor to the game, and has certainly made good use of it so far in that one. That should have been just a Gold Fury for Daddy's Daycare, and then we just go about our business, but a great engage from HD Clutch, taking down Zotz and slowing them down, opens up the window, and X-Up doesn't just jump through it, he bursts through feet first and shatters glass cinematically around him as he walks into that fight. That was spectacularly done by Molly's Demons.
Yeah, I mean, you hop on the horse just to slow things down, and all of a sudden you're getting, obviously, all skill. You know, 100%
yes.
skillful play from X-Up. I mean, clearly we see why they're valuing this Huyi over maybe some of the more tier list picks, right? I mean, now you have a 2-level lead over in this ADC role in a map, and it may even look for the solo kill. The ultimate gets dropped. Control.
Did you see that lag? That was crazy.
Yeah, a little bit of a gap there between when he had to dash, is some damage being traded over on the solo side as well. Desto does get that back off successfully, but HD Clutch may be trapped between the clutches of 4 members here as they look to dive the tower, and Trick over on the rotation as well. But Paragon is not done dealing the damage quite yet.
Nice.
Too long, and does trade out his life for the kill, but Zotz may do the same, and the 4-man rotation is successful from Demon to counteract the rotation of the red squad, and they're still on the chase.
Yeah, they're hunting for this last kill onto the support. No Omi available for this Yamoja. Good wall from Bo the Farmer. Should be securing that one, and that'll mark the last kill of this engagement. And the Demons seem to be able to do no wrong here.
Yeah, just so much damage coming from that still. And we see, finally, in a fight, the I'm a Monster gets a little bit of value. I mean, we've seen that off the mark the last couple of times, having to be used for defense, CC immunity, movement speed coming out as well, but finally Paragon steps a little bit too far forward, and I'm not convinced that was the play to force a kill onto the Guan Yu, who's, you know, has the most deaths, or tied for the most deaths on his team. He's perhaps been in the action the most, but I'm just not sure his life is worth that as much of a mid lane.
Well, to be fair, when you're going for that play, I don't think that you're assuming that you're going to lose everyone in the 1v4 under tower on the half-health solo lane. That probably wasn't in the discussion for whether or not they can go for that play. Is, what if I jump in as Baba Yaga and then get Scylla ulted and explode? That probably didn't take place in the conversation.
Yeah, that's fair. Desto up into the air, and Villadon may be in range of Zotz, but just barely a little bit too far out of range. Backing.
He hits these.
He may look for the double tap, but not willing to go in on that one. Meanwhile, HD Clutch willing to try and look for the shutdown, but misses the stun. No CC immunity left here. Zote's ultimate is down, but it's off the mark on the wall, and the double tap, and the juke shoes are massive. He's made the time for his team to rotate in, and nobody wants to be a part of that. The 3-man rotation successful from Daddy's Daycare, and Zotes gets out, losing maybe 20% HP.
Alright guys, let's just stop trying to kill the solo laners, alright? Like, we've tried it from both sides of the map, and they seem to be completely capable of killing themselves and each other. Maybe we just let them do it, and maybe we let Daddy's Daycare go for the pyro here.
Well, you got to kill Zotes if he wants to kill you. Blinking in, looking for the engage onto Desto right there, down to half HP to start this fight. Maybe looking for an engage in, does find the double tap, and Paragon is immediately under pressure, but Zots takes the opportunity, trying to find the 1v1 in the back, but he's ran into 4 members of the Demons,
crush.
and a good crush will take some members low here, but a Yamojo ult shuts down the corridor and will slow things down.
Nice.
Desto chooses to dive by himself and will trade his life out for the mid laner.
Nice.
Gets up a kill onto the ADC, and all of a sudden it's 2-1 in favor of the Demons. They're looking for more, but they will not find it. Instead, it's Zotes on the double kill, and Sup adds to the tally as they look for even more, but Zot finds the perfect Lord of the Afterlife and is able to trade out at least 1 for 1, and now it's a 3 for 3. It's added up, but so keeps finding the damage and will take down 3 in this fight.
Well, you know, Frog, I have not seen a team fight recently that has made me hold my breath as much as that one. That is just about as close as you can draw it up in this one, and Zotes will go for the blue buff invade. I don't think he ended up getting that one successfully, but that was an insanely fun to watch and well-balanced fight. And in the end of it, 3 for 4 doesn't spell out a whole lot because it's not enough people from either side of the map to mount a significant advantage off the back of that fight. We talk about it all the time in Smite. If you want to develop a lead, if you want to get ahead, if you want to win the game, you have to get the stuff after the stuff. And if you don't have people alive to get that stuff, then you're really not going to do anything. As chaotic and fun and entertaining as that fight was, it's basically a wash at the end of the day because everybody ends up dying.
Well, now the pressure on the map stands tall. Essentially an even gold lead, 1,000 gold separating these two teams almost 20 minutes into this one. And all 3 objectives standing on the map at this point. It's really the question of who wants to take the first step forward and try and find their success in a fight perhaps very similar to the last one, but it'll be Demons stepping onto the Primal Fury first. I would say they have the secure advantage. I'm a Monster is loaded in the chamber, but it will be Paragon first to be taken down a little bit low. Forces the Aegis, but will find the home sweet home, and I'm a Monster does not find the target into the backline. Control Alt Eats gets go, but Zotes finds himself in the backline between 4 and gets taken down early, and Paragon with no ultimate to save himself is continuing to get forced out. It is a wash. The blue team fighting forward. Low health bars, but it won't be low enough unless Paragon turns it around with 1 first ability, taking down 2, and all of a sudden this one's a little more even.
Yeah, Royal's going to be surrounded by 3 here. Going to have to find some kind of escape route, but they're not going to make it easy for him. There's a deicide for Molly's Demons as they walk back toward this Primal Fury. And, you know, Zotes did his job there. Sandman Sam absolutely said, guys, I'm zoning 4 people. Can we please take this fight? But his counterpart, Zots, was just nowhere to be found in that one. Just not close enough to make use of the space that was created there. Whereas across the way, Desto dunks into 3 people, does a bunch of damage, and then gets out and survives. And that's the critical difference between how the engage from both of those teams went. Zotes had to die to create space, whereas Desto's capable of hammering back out. And then you've just got more members you can just play that more slowly, surge forward, wait for your own counter engage, and once again, man, Intrict is in the right place at the right time, and XUp has been making excellent work of these ricochets so far. I'm continually impressed by the backline from this Molly's Demons team, and Zot, or not Zot, oh my god, there's 2 Zots, I just can't help it. Frog, I might have to call you something with more syllables to make that stick. I think that we might be in it for the long haul here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm continuously impressed as well by the carries from Molly's Demons, but I'm a little bit continuously unimpressed by the carries from Daddy's Daycare. I mean, I feel like routinely these players have had you know, a couple opportunities to try and make their name in the team fights, and these get traded back and forth between these ADCs. But that damage coming out from Control Alt Eats may show you what he's capable of. But yeah, I mean, you know, you get Paragon stepping up a little bit too far in that fight. You get Control Alt Eat maybe being a bit too far back. But as I start to look at these builds, I can't help but think some power spikes are coming online. You get the stacking item online for Baba Yaga, and now at this point you've got Book of the Dead ready to go. You've got some of that survivability. Maybe you get to pop ult a little bit later in the fight, but now at this point, if this Deathbringer comes through from control alt eat, I mean, you may see this damage start to switch around.
Yeah, you're very intelligent to point out those power spikes that are coming through here, because it's specifically your tank killing power spikes for a lot of these characters. Baba Yaga finally picking up an item that allows her to chew through this tanky front line of this Guan Yu and this Ymir. Soul Reaver so critical in these mage builds, especially if you're not going to be building a ton of percent penetration, which none to speak of so far. You need to get this item online. So that's a huge spike in power for this Baba Yaga. And then across the way, you've got the Titan's Bane now finished off for Desto. Again, a good tank killing option. Same with this Obsidian Shard for Entricked on the Scylla. Kinsai coming through for X-Up. We've seen a lot of engagement so far where the backline is just gone, and then it's tanks that are smacking at each other. With all of these items getting finished, Frog, I don't know how many more fights we're going to get to see like that.
Yeah, I mean, I will say they are at least battling back into it. Spectral armors immediately get focused out from Molly's Demons. Now both tanks utilizing that item, so they will be able to survive a little bit longer against this now Deathbringer empowered control alt eat. But Zod's caught out a little bit here, has to use the Lord of the Afterlife, but I'm not sure it's gonna be enough. Entricked will find the crush, and into the air goes Desto. He finds control alt eat alone as well in the back line. A huge stun and a huge relic will not save him, but Zotes at least finds the mid laner, and Desto soon to fall. But from Guan Yu just barely keeps him alive a little bit longer. But it's all 5 members of Demons coming through to help out in the team fight. A double kill here, a double kill there, a deicide for Molly's Demons.
And Zot's just way too far forward in that one. You can't be stepping up into that Fire Giant pit all by yourself. Doesn't use the beads either. And, you know, Frog, I don't know if my man had the beads available for that play, but certainly would have liked to see them go on cooldown if that was the case, because now, after that sprawling engagement where everyone's trying to bail out Zots, but everybody's already on top of Zots and you can't really save him, that is 3 members now with the Fire Giant for the Demons, and the first sizable lead that we've seen in this one. It's been a lot of 1,000, 2,000 here or there, but Fire Giant and 5,000 gold in your pocket is certainly a good start to this one, and Demons very capable of beginning to siege up with this one. That allows Bo the Farmer to get that starter item upgrade. Gonna see the Compassion come through here. Now even tankier are these frontliners for the Demons, allowing them to really soak up a lot of what Daddy's Daycare has available, because it's not a lot of just one-shot the backliner. And we talked about that briefly on the pseudo desk segment, where Zots just doesn't have the ability, like a Thor, to just CC chain a backliner and kill them. You have to work front to back with this composition. Use the Kinsai, use the Soul Reaver, use this crit from Control Alt I Eat, and fight your way through these tanks. But you know, when they've got Fire, when they've got Compassion, almost full build for this Guan Yu as well, that makes that a very tall task. But hang on, we got an ambush setting up over here.
Yeah, all 5 members here from Daddy's Daycare looking to fight back into it, catch a member out, and they found the engagement they were looking for as Dots finds the mid laner, trades out himself in the process though. Desto just barely able to get up into the Anvil of Dawn, may look to retreat off this one, only 20% HP, and that will be the call, but Bo the Farmer's not ready to make that call just yet. Both tanks from the Demons trying to make waves in the backline of Daddy's Daycare, but they only have the support of the ADC, no mid laner available to deal this AoE damage, and they are forced out. As a result, I'm not sure they can defend this Oni Fury.
Yeah, and that's a good play from Daddy's Daycare, not just sitting on their hands and waiting for Molly's Demons to come to them. I don't know that they can necessarily step up and take this one away, but stripping out the mid laner for the Demons, that's another crucial piece in their siege missing for another 20 or so seconds that will really slow them down and prevent them from getting too much off of this Fire Giant. Granted, Scylla didn't have it to begin with, but certainly does make it so that they're not going to be coming back anytime soon to contest. And, you know, Daddy's Daycare, they do want this Oni.
They are picking it up down to half HP, but Instill is still not here, but neither is Tots, and they take advantage. X-Sub takes down the support on the other side as Paragon trapped between a wall and a rock and will be taken down as well. It's two that fall for Daddy's Daycare, just sticking around too long, and Zot's backs, and his team continues the fight after the fact. If anything, they've set themselves up worse this way.
Yeah, well said there. It was definitely the correct play to try to set up an ambush and get one pick, and I was fairly satisfied with the fact that they got tricked out of that engagement, but staying up and trying to fight for that objective against this Fire Giant team with everyone respawning was just biting off entirely too much. And these walls, man, from both Bo the Farmer and Desto, you don't often think of the Thor as a wall character, but they've certainly been making good use out of both to trap in the team, and now they're going for this bird.
So in first, will hit the double knockup, and Zetso off the mark with the Anvil of Dawn, but this time a monster also off the mark. They're missing the critical piece of damage, and X-Up has been trapped between the Phoenix walls, and will get, no, Intricked with a crush over the wall, saves the ADC, takes down the solo laner, and all 5 members somehow survive, and Intricked is doing it all. He takes down 2, and will finally be traded out as Zotz looks to help his team out by taking even more off the table. They're fighting for every last piece of value that they can get, as Paragon has dove in for the kill, trying to show shades of Intricked, but not able to do it. At least they defend the Phoenix.
Yeah, they do certainly defend the Phoenix, Frog, and that's the crucial piece of this puzzle that we have to remember. That was the Fire Giant siege of the Demons, and they got an Oni Fury, they got a tier 1 tower, and a tier 2 tower. And that's it. They didn't get anything else. So it's definitely a good defensive effort from Daddy's Daycare to be able to prevent them from picking up anything else. The fight got messy, it got sloppy, there was stuff missed left and right by the Demons, but sometimes that's just the way the dice roll, and you have to be willing to take that and say, all right, we got our win. Our win was not losing. And I think that that was the first time from Daddy's Daycare that we've seen, you know, most of the team decide that they got what they came for and got out of there. Granted, Paragon, you know, a little too deep at the end there, but sometimes you get excited, it's all good. They defended is the important part. Now they need to mount a defense on this Fire Giant, but it doesn't look like they're ready for it.
Yeah, this one gets picked up instantly from Molly's Demons, and it's only 2 members in the area here. Dot's looking for the steal and does not take it away. Wants to escape immediately after the fact. Desto looking for a little bit more, but it looks like at the very least all of Daddy's Daycare will get out of there in a timely manner if they do not catch Zotes, and I don't think they will under the tier 2 tower. So they will pick up the Fire Giant at the very least. Not enough contest coming out from Daddy's Daycare, but still a number of towers to go through here. And it's not EFG. I mean, this siege is far from guaranteed.
It's far from guaranteed, but it certainly is looking pretty good right now. Nobody here to defend this tier 2 tower, and notably no mid laner here either. Seems like Baba Yaga having some connection issues, which is a man down on the side of Daddy's Daycare, and the Demons are just going for it.
Yeah, they are. This Riptide comes through trying to trap members in the River's Rebuke, but not able to do anything but slow down the siege. This Phoenix still has not taken any damage, and finally it starts to be deal damage too, and it will go down rather quickly after the fact. And luckily no members falling here from Daddy's Daycare. Zotz gets focused out a little bit in the mid lane, but they still have a tier 1 tower, tier 2 tower to go through rather in the mid lane, so they can't push across that central plane like they would like to. Have to slow things down a little bit, but that's at least a bird.
Yeah, they got the bird, and they're going to take down this tier 2 tower in no time at all. And honestly, Frog, they just might be healthy enough to keep going.
Yeah, they've got the healing coming through from HD. Clutch is once again trying to slow things down, but now the ultimates have been used for the most part. They're 4v5. They cannot defend this Phoenix successfully. And Molly's Demons, I'm not sure they feel great about it, but man, they are taking advantage to the best of their ability. But Zotz is tired of it. He wants to go in. He'll find the engage, but he will not find a kill. But he'll help Zotes find the mid laner. And Intricked goes down in trade for the jungler. Good wall Snowball slows down
Oh my
Zoto
God.
against the Phoenix, and a 1-for-2 in favor of the Demons. That makes it a 4v2 here at the left side. Phoenix and Desto wants even more than that, but a control Zayt able to trade out at least one. Will stay alive, or at least force the Thor into the ground. But it's the ADC who's been chasing kills just a little bit. He wants to kill way more than he wants the Phoenix, and he may just get it. An essential deicide as Paragon is not here to defend. It'll be game one for Molly's Demons.
Yeah, we'll wait an extra 3 seconds or so for that official deicide and a quadra kill for the boy X Up. You can claim that he didn't earn the last one, perhaps, but certainly taking advantage of what's available to him, and notably 11, 2, and 13 top damage in that one is X Up on the Hu Yi. And we threw a couple of question marks at this pick, Frog. It is not something you will find at the top of a tier list. Nobody's preaching the gospel of Hu Yi in the current meta. Not a bad god by any stretch of the imagination. We're not talking about this is an Izanami or something, but definitely not one you expected to just show up and slam it home in that one. But X-Up certainly left his mark on this game, notably Desto and HD Clutch also up there in those damage numbers, making it happen on the right-hand side of the map as well. And what looked like a fairly back-and-forth game for, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes in that one, suddenly wrenched control of by Molly's Demons. Even with Paragon there, before they inevitably seemed to have DC'd, that absolutely looked like it was all Molly's Demons.
Yeah, I mean, after the game was so even for so long, I mean, you consider it maybe 25 minutes out of a 35-minute game is completely even, maybe 1,000, 1,500 gold separating these two teams. It blows completely out of proportion with a couple of missteps, really from both sides. I mean, it was a 3-for-0, I think, that Daddy's Daycare take down initial wins in the fight, but they overstay, give away 4 of their lives and a gold fury, and it
Turning
turns
point.
into a good fire giant fight after the fact. I mean, these games can slip out of your hands so easily, right? I mean, it's so even going in, just one mistake, and they don't even get a chance on that siege. Unfortunate disconnect there out of Paragon, but that's only game one, folks, and we may be in for a long haul. We're going to have all 5 players from both sides in this next match ready to go after a quick break. We'll see you on the other side. Welcome in, Smite fans, back to the Cryptic Zoo Smite feed Tundra Division Finals. We've got Molly's Demons going up against Daddy's Daycare. And if you're just joining us, you missed a fantastic game one. A little bit unfortunate at the end finding that DC, but I mean, man, I'm not sure that was the game deciding thing. We had a couple fights before that were quite hectic. So I'm pumped for this game too. My name's Frog, still bringing you the action along with Kaizo. And Kaizo, I mean, off the bat, just your initial reaction. What do they need to change?
Initial reaction, just wow. Because, like, very explosive smite in that one. It's a lot of very slow and methodical play in the current meta, especially for these championship series games. But there was nothing slow or methodical about most of that game number one. It was definitely action from the word go. But if we're gonna change something, Frog, it's gotta be more attention paid to this duo lane by Daddy's Daycare. Because Molly's Demons, with X up piloting the Hu Yi, kind of just ran over Control Alt I Eat on the Kernanos. I think that is, if you point to one single flaw in the draft, in the playstyle, in the game plan, whatever you may choose to call it, that's certainly where I'm going to be looking.
Well, we are ready to see what those adaptations might be. We'll jump right into picks and bans here for game number two. Chaos side going to be on the left side of your screen. Order on the right side of your screen. These teams have switched sides here in this one. But as these bans expect to come through, I mean, I'm expecting, we obviously didn't get to see game one bans. So these are likely similar, maybe with some few changes to adapt after game number one. But perhaps most critically, after that DC at the end of game one, the Demons are playing with a different, or rather Daddy's Daycare playing with a different mid laner.
Yeah, that's true. Paragon had to go. They said the clock struck 6 p.m. and then immediately Paragon had to leave. So
Unlucky.
Subbing in on short notice for Paragon is going to be it's Tomcat in the mid lane. Notably, an ADC player taking his talents multi-role style to the mid lane. So potentially a couple of extra ADC bans thrown in that direction. I know that people typically like to stick to what they're more comfortable with, so something like a Kernanos or a Chiron ban might not be the worst idea, just because the guy's used to using a bow, so I would want to take that away from him. But it looks like we're going to stick to what was likely the case in game number one, except this time around it's going to be Thor banned out in that third slot, no longer going to give that one over to Desto, and that last ban in that empty slot, Frog, is actually going to be Maui.
4 assassins taken off the board here between these two squads. Ishtar taken off the board, no surprise there. And Maui, I'm not sure he's a surprise either. Kronos may be the surprise, though. Not the best win rate for this pick that we've seen at the top level in the past. Not even the most popularity we've seen at the top level in the past, but definitely some flex potential and perhaps some scaling potential if you're looking for that late game pick similar to the Scylla, but bringing it in a little bit of a different style. I'm surprised to see that pick prioritized as highly as it is when you see the top 2 taken off the board for the Order squad. Yemoja Cernerno, certainly nothing to scoff at.
Yeah, and that's just kind of a crazy duo lane. Like, you don't typically expect to get this duo lane because Yemoja's a character where either your support doesn't play it or you top pick it every time it's available. And it certainly seems to be the case for Royal that is definitely a god in the god pool. And as well, Kernanos, I mean, we saw it in game number one, didn't look as good, but certainly an incredibly strong pick to pair with that. Just pressure on pressure on pressure. So much to work with over there. But I want to talk about this mid lane because Kronos is an anomaly in the meta, I think, because it's not Kronos is particularly good, is the reason that the god sees play right now. Kronos sees play because Polynomicon is so good right now. You're going this book build ordinarily already, and just adding on to that the fact that Polynomicon scales off of your mana and book gives you a ton of mana, it gives something
She's
like
just
Chronos that's
stunning.
just content to sit in the mid lane, build up this Book of Thoth, and then itemize into a Polynomicon. So much to work with. It's huge one-shot damage. It's great damage on Phoenixes. You can go one auto at a time on the Siege. It gives you so much more flexibility, despite the fact that the god itself maybe not the best.
I think after these picks from the Chaos side, especially, I absolutely agree with you. I think we are likely to see Kronos in this mid lane. Rama, of course, likely to be over there in that dual lane. Hades heading over towards that solo lane. So we've got 2 mages already on the board for the Chaos side. And simply because we get this Hades pick in the solo lane, I'm almost interested if this Chang'e has been picked to mirror that mage solo lane. And it looks like the Chaos side might agree with that assessment as they ban out Scylla and are looking to take away that mid laner as well as a couple of solo options taken off the board from both sides, support options, excuse me, from the Order squad. But I mean, this composition still has some flexibility for both sides, I think.
Yeah, a little bit of ambiguity for where this Chang'e goes. It's a weird enough one that you can't really pigeonhole it into one role. I think that this is equally valuable in the mid lane or in the solo lane. I think that maybe mid lane Chang'e would be a little bit better just because you typically want to build her with that Staff of Mirrodin and just ult one dude and then just kill them immediately. And ideally blink before that to give yourself a little bit more gap close. That is so frustrating to deal with and so difficult to deal with right now. Just so much one-shot damage in a CC chain from a safe mage is, I think, the direction they're looking to go for it. You saw that Yorm hover, so maybe tilting their hand that solo laner's still not quite locked in yet. But if I'm the Chaos team, I'm still not 100% sure where this one's going.
Yeah, I mean, whether I'm 100% sure or not about that solo lane matchup, I'm not pleased about this Susano at all. I mean, Susano getting to this far in the draft after being potentially, you know, one of the top junglers at the moment. Thor gets taken off the board, so they have to look somewhere else, right? And they look towards the Susano, which may be the perfect pick for trying to deal this burst damage as fast as possible, which is what you want to do ideally against both this Kronos and the Rama before they can get their ults off, right? If you're looking for somebody to delete a carry, this might be exactly the pick you're looking for. But on the other side, as they finish out their draft, this hugely aggressive dual lane that it's turned into, this warrior support coming through, and then the Lancelot carry able to die, or jungle rather. I don't know why I said carry, but able to dive the back line relatively well as well. I mean, both teams looking strong here.
Yeah, and you talked about the Susano potentially being the perfect counter into the draft that they already had available. I think that in that conversation as well is the fact that Lancelot is, for my money, the best god in the game to counter Susano. You have to start off almost all of your Susano engagements with either a knock-up from your 2 or a knock-up from your ult. And when you're playing Lancelot and you're riding that horse around, you don't get hit by either one of those in a meaningful way. You're immune to that form of CC. Not to mention, most of what Susano wants to do is move around a whole bunch. The 1 is a movement ability, that Storm Kata, as is that 3, that Jetstream. In order to use either one of them effectively, he has to be able to move. And wouldn't you know it, Zots on this Lancelot can put down a big old giant cripple field and say, hey, Susano, you are not allowed to play right here. You're going to have to find a different way to address the situation than using your movement abilities, unless you want to use beads on not even CC. Like, it's just a cripple. It would feel so bad to use your beads on a cripple field and then get stunned by Tomcat and absolutely one-shot. I think Lancelot is absolutely the correct pick anytime you see a Susano get locked in.
Well, we are ready to jump into game number 2, folks. No more waiting around. We get to see these drafts in action. And the first thing I'm noticing is not only do we get to switch up in mid, Tomcat coming over as a sub, but we have a switch up on Molly's Demons as well. X-Up going away from the amazing ADC gameplay he had last time. Now onto the Emoja. Interesting switch up.
And if you can believe it, Frog, ADC is not X support's main role. I know that may come as a shock to you, but it's
Wow.
actually support. And we'll see both of these supports invading these purple buffs. Both of them should be able to get them in record time. But X Sup, I have played with and I have played against this Yemoja from him, and it is spooky, man. Like, Royal looked fairly good on the Yemoja. I would expect to see even higher caliber play from this X support Yemoja as Royal tries to get that buff invade off, but will end up getting caught for it.
Yeah, and may actually lose the life here. Slow coming through from X Up and will be taken down first blood onto the Emoji in trade for that purple buff. I'm not convinced that that's going to be worthwhile at the end of the day, but you already see that aggression prepared to come out from Royal in the form of the invade, and we're going to see first blood relatively early as once again we get a switch up from these junglers sticking to the same pathing. Find Susano in the middle lane, find that totem being secured for Daddy's Daycare, and sure enough, quite a different solo matchup to be sure. HD Clutch still on the aggressive warrior, but Zote's changing it up completely, going from the Kukulkan to this Hades picked early in the draft. A little bit of a surprising switch up.
Yeah, and I said it once in game 1, and I'll say it twice in game 2, and please God tell me I'm right. He should not be dying in this matchup, but we might have some death in this dual laner, maybe even in this mid lane as fighting is taking place on all stages of the map. Zot's going to get out of that engagement in mid, but Hades is a lane bot. Frog. Make no mistake about that. This character in the current meta is built exclusively to farm those waves, build a crazy amount of damage, again, wouldn't you know it, with a Book of Thoth and a Polynomicon, and then rotate mid and just kill whoever is there. And all you have to do as the Hades is jump in, clear the wave, get a bunch of sustain, and then return to your tower. This is the easiest character you can put a solo laner on in all of Smite.
My concern comes through when they put a little bit of pressure on him, and you already see that coming through. The rotation here on the right side of the map will be Desto here early at this blue buff, potentially looking for the invade, but they'll try and get some damage onto Zotes before they look for the fight. Will take him down to half HP, but now it's Zots continuing the trade here between these two gods on either side, and done enough to push them off. I'm a little bit surprised they backed up from that. I feel like they win the 2v2.
Yeah, a little low on mana for Desto here, and Susano's mana cost early on, they are crazy, man. Like, the 2 is, I think, 80 mana to cast at level 1 for some reason. Granted, the 3 makes up for it. The Jetstream is only, like, 45 mana, but when you're trying to use your main CC tool as often as possible and your main boxing tool as often as possible, those numbers start to eat up after a while. So I don't dislike the fact that they just recognize dual lane's doing fine. We don't have to win every lane. We can back up here.
Ooh, a double stun coming through from X Up. He is looking good on this Yemoja as predicted and burns the beads out of the ADC early on here in this game. And critically, might be great timing. Now everybody's around that level 5 mark. He will certainly have those beads down for this kick over to level 5 from Desto. And I'm a little bit surprised that he's stayed on the map as long as he has, but with this back, maybe has been able to stay on the map long enough to try and get that full flat penetration item off the bat, but just barely not able to pull out that Jotun's Wrath, but still may have some gank potential over on this left-hand side if they're looking to continue the pressure, maybe with the purple invade.
And we talked in game 1 about that. Well, hang on. I was going to say something about game 1, but game 2 is happening, Frog.
Oh, Royal almost gets taken out, but the focus is on a control Altaït, and they're separated. Phantom Ghoul is able to take down one, though, but look for the rotation. Royal gets traded out as well. Double kill for the ADC, but Tomcat rotates over along with the jungler and puts one down onto Phantom Ghoul. He'll trade out his life as X Up trying to stay alive, and will do so successfully. 2 for 1 in favor of the Demon.
And great awareness from Daddy's Daycare, understanding that you are getting hard out pressured in duo lane. That's just what Yemoja brings. That's just what Kernanos brings. Rom is very good at getting lane pressure if he's allowed to step up to the wave and clear it as he would like to. And Yemoja Kernanos not going to be your opposition that's going to facilitate that kind of opportunity. So understanding they're going to be on tower line, they're going to play aggressive, might as well rotate over and see what we can get. Granted, Intrict has just been, casually farming up a Book of Thoth that whole time, but it's definitely worth it to pick up these kills where you can and try to find some semblance of a lead somewhere.
Yeah, and they have found that semblance of a lead. 1,000 gold, even a little bit more than that, much earlier on than we ever saw this kind of discrepancy happen in game number 1, right? Molly's Demons, able to get off to a little bit of a lead, and we see that come through in the XP lane, specifically in these side lanes, all a level to 2 levels up. Now Phantom Ghoul finds himself after that double kill, and importantly, they're winning on the side lanes, and as a result, they've maybe, they have to force Daddy's Daycare to respond to these side lanes, and Tomcat gets to farm up rather quietly. And that may be, we talk about him being an ADC mains, he may be a little bit weaker in this laning phase, but picking a god like the Chronos, if he's able to get to the teamfight stage, I'm not sure you're calling it off roll. He just gets to deal the damage.
Yeah, and backliners are pretty contiguous in that regard, where it's difficult to draw the line between what you're going to do, but diving is certainly what's happening in right.
Royal and the rest of the Daddy's Daycare looking to find a kill onto HD Clutch, but an early Eagles rally will put him under almost no pressure. And now look for Zotz to try and find an invade here towards the back camps and doing a little bit of damage, but action on all sides of the map as Control IE just barely finds the gap between the wall and the River's Rebuke and is able to stay alive as well. It's pretty clear already which side lanes these teams are looking to focus out.
Yeah, and it worked in game number 1 with X up on the ADC to lean on Control Alt Ait and put him behind, and it certainly did turn up dividends, and it's looking pretty effective here in game number 2 as well. Purple buff due to spawn here. Zotz is on the scene, but he's going to be outnumbered, going to have to be fairly careful, though the cavalry is coming from mid, but meanwhile, fighting it right, it's action everywhere, Frog.
Action everywhere, and the right kill may come first if they're able to get it. Looking for Zotes, just barely able to survive. Let's see if his team can do the same on the left-hand side. If not, they're looking to be the ones on the attack instead. Tomcat putting some pressure onto X up there, taking him down to low Omi, but amazingly, for all the rotational pressure, we find no kills for either squad.
And everybody going to just return to farming after that one, which just feels wrong to just be in a situation where no one dies following any of that. Bologna gets to proxy a wave. HD Clutch makes sure that that one will not go into tower and starts to develop an even more meaningful lead here, going to back and finish off that Shogun's Kusari. And you're not looking at a ton of characters capable of bullying a Hades, but Bologna seems to be a pretty effective option.
Yeah, and regardless of the actual bullying and latest Control Alt Ait trying to clear the wave, but has to deal with the poke coming through from Phantom Ghoul, is not having a good time over in this ADC role. Speaking of the poke over on the right-hand side, though, I'm not even sure the poke matters as much as the rotational pressure you get out of HD Clutch on this Bologna. We saw him be a complete menace on the Guan, as well as Zotes being a menace on the Kukulkan. They were both able to have this aggressive warrior in these fights, starting fights, being aggressive, being the one in first. But now I would say the much more prominent engage has ended up on HD Clutch, and he's going to continue to be able to go back to that play style. Meanwhile, they have to play a little bit differently around this Hades. He's not going to be as online, as aggressive early on in this game.
You don't want to fall into the trap of paying too much attention to the solo side there, and X-Up certainly not going to be falling for that one. Going to spend as much time in duo lane as possible, understanding perhaps that this is where the early game fighting should be taking place. You're either bullying and pressuring out a solo laner, which to his credit, Zotes has prevented from happening this game. I think that it was pretty easy to say that maybe they could combine between HD Clutch and Desto to bring him down and start to manifest manifest a sizable lead on that side of the map, but he's played very careful, allowing for some attention to be paid elsewhere, like this duel.
Huge Reverse Rebuke traps both of the dual lane members in from escaping to that tier 2 tower, and now Royal is up into the Royal Assault and will look to take down X up. They've traded him out for damage, forced the bead, but now Zotz is here and will finish the kill onto the support, and Trick is rotated over as well. Tomcat matching it from the mid lane and trying to knock the mid laner down, but not enough damage left. A great response from Daddy's Daycare to take down one.
And Desto's here lurking at this red buff. There are 3 still around from Daddy's Daycare, but that's apparently going to be enough to dissuade the Demons from trying any further aggression. I thought maybe with that Susanoo ult available, they might have gone a little bit more aggressive, but it's actually Royal going aggressive.
Good immunity there for Intricked, and just, oh, it does not save him. He just barely immunes the knockup from Royal. I thought they were out of there, but Tomcat following up with a good stun there takes down the mid laner. They're able to trade out 2 for that purple aggression. And Kaizo, did you know Royal Assault is actually Hera's first ability? It has nothing to do with Horror Assault. That's to the skies.
Yes. I wasn't going to call you out on that one because it kind of flowed. It flowed very nicely together, though. Like, it sounded very cool when you said it. So I was going to let you have your moment, but you're absolutely right about the fact that you're absolutely wrong, Frog.
Well, it feels good. Maybe we'll get it right the next time. You know, we'll have a couple different chances this game if Royal is ulting. And speaking of this Horus, we get the aggressive warrior support, and Royal has certainly been trying to be aggressive this game, although if you're gonna pick the warrior support, I almost feel like you have to be doing a little bit more than this Yemoja, especially from the Yemoja that you played last game. And I'm not convinced that Royal has been able to find success on this aggression, you know, compared to this Yemoja. And in fact, they're gonna go right back to the purple buff.
Come on, man. They just want another death onto Control Altair. 4 people here. He's gonna buy time.
Good ult early, and this time to the skies, potentially here to save the day. But a great, oh my goodness, the combo coming through the ultimate from Control Ult, i.e. does not buy enough time, and Desto finds one, and Trick finds another, and a River's Rebuke will help secure the last 2, man. Locking them in a double kill for Desto. Tom will be taken down for the triple kill, and Desto not able to get out. Zotes will at least find a trade kill, and he's doing it all. He finds the double, and he's trying to find more, but the healing will come through, and Phantom Ghoul pops the beast to secure it. But Zotes saves what could have been a deicide for Daddy's Daycare.
My god, man, I'm trying to tell you, Frog. I'm trying to hook you up with the information. X-Up on this Yemoja is yucky. Like, it is frankly wrong that he's even allowed to play it. Because I have not seen a Yemoja player at this caliber of play look so much better than everyone else on the field, other than when I'm watching X-Up on this Yemoja. All of the setup is there, all of the pressure is there, you're never losing a single dual lane with this guy on this pick, not to mention all of these fights so far have been flawless, and it's easy to say, you know, the flashy mage ult takes the kill, or somebody's just critting everybody to death on an ADC, but it's not every day you get to say a support is completely driving the game, quite like this guy is on this Yemoja.
No, and you gotta imagine he's the one calling and setting up that sort of play as well. 3 members from Molly's Demons are over there at the purple buff before Daddy's Daycare even gets a chance to respond. And they take the purple buff, they take the life. I mean, I thought that they were at least going to force it into an even fight. To the skies gets there in time, it feels like. But if anything, it sets up a dirtier combo. The Riptide into the Chang'e ultimate onto 4 members. That is disgusting. That's gross. Like, what are you supposed to do to fight back into that? I mean, if anything, that has to completely turn into a conversation on Daddy's Daycare about how you want to approach fights differently, because you cannot find yourself in a situation like that near the fire giant.
And I do think we've slurped the EU boy quite enough on this one, so we'll turn our attention to the rotation that came at the end from Zotes here. And actually, Zotes, speaking of, trying to contest 1v3 up here through the skies is coming.
Yeah, it's on the way, and Zotes gets the shield off, will be able to take down at least one with the help of Zot's. Desto falls and Zotes survives with the blink, and now they have even more pressure. Support will have the beads forced out, but not sure there's going to be much more to get over here on this right-hand side. A beautiful combo of abilities to keep the solo laner alive and pick up a kill.
And I love it when solo laners are comfortable using their health bar as a resource. And, you know, if a health bar is a resource, X Up doesn't have much left, and neither does Control Alt I Eat over here in the left lane. Aegis used one more auto, will do it from Phantom Ghoul, but can't quite find it just yet. Wiggle Shoes from Control Alt I Eat. Come on, Phantom Ghoul, I can only talk for so long, and it looks like Rom will finally die, Frog. That was not nearly as hype as I made it, but I just kind of got lost in the sauce.
He finally finds the solo kill after having the pressure. Phantom Ghoul takes one down, but it might be Tomcat under some pressure on this right-hand side as HD Clutch took down one while we were watching the ADCs duke it out over on the left-hand side. So Zotes does ultimately get traded out, but I mean, these big scraps aren't what matter. It is the objectives, the stuff after the stuff, and it's the Pyromancer secured after the Gold Fury. Every objective this game going towards Molly's Demons, and a 5,000 gold lead 16 minutes into the game. They have a commanding lead in this game.
Yeah, and you know, Frog, in game number 1, with the way the first 20 minutes of gameplay went, I thought that we might be going to all 5 games here because it was so back and forth, it was so balanced, they were such good fights, but with the way Molly's Demons have played not only the back half of game 1, but pretty much all of game number 2, I think we might be getting shorted a couple of games here. I don't think it's unreasonable to say that if Daddy's Daycare don't make an adjustment, they risk getting run over 3-up.
I don't know, man. I think you're talking about it too early. Now, some people say that game number 2 in a best of 5 is the most important game. Some people say that.
Do they? Who says that specifically?
I personally think it's game 5.
So just you.
Important.
Oh.
But what is maybe most important is the lives of Molly's Demons here is they have not rotated all 4 members over this time around. It's instead Daddy's Daycare who have the stronger response. They react quickly to the purple invade once again, and they are not done with the pressure. To the skies, shuts off the escape, and 2 already taken down. Make it a 3rd as Zotes takes the mid laner off the table. Desto just barely able to get out of there, but as we're talking it up, Daddy's Daycare finds some success.
You know, and it's entirely my fault, and I will say that openly, that fight goes the way it does. I haven't been doing as much casting recently as I really should have been, and I completely forgot how potent the caster's curse is. I absolutely am the reason that Daddy's Daycare fight ends up going in their direction, and they finally take one off of Molly's Demons. If we don't have that conversation, Frog, I'm pretty sure the Demons send like 10 dudes to that purple buff, and they wipe the floor with Daddy's Daycare. But instead, finally, it's the Order team that comes up big.
And here's the thing about that caster's curse. You were talking about the whole set, man.
I was.
Like, this could be a game 5 just because you said it wouldn't be.
Oh no.
And you're really putting your career on the line here for this one. I mean, this could be the biggest caster curse I've seen in a while. You know, we'll just have to hold on and
put that
see
pressure
if
on
they're able. So, I mean, you put it on yourself, man. and it's Demons who are putting the pressure onto Daddy's Daycare here, and it's perfectly timed. This Gold Fury now up, and they have rotated all 5 members over here to this left-hand side, but I'm not sure they'll be satisfied without a pick.
Yeah, they're gonna have to get something because Hades is here. Zatz is in right lane, but they got plenty members.
Yeah, Oni Fury taken down low. They're looking for the secure, and it will be secured along with his Zano ultimate. Zotes in early, but gets shredded instantly upon blinking in, and Royal survives not much longer. And clean objective, a clean 2 picks, and Molly's Demons bounce back.
And you gotta wonder, Frog, what on God's green earth is Zatz doing in right lane during that? Because, to me, there's 2 ways that fight can go. 1, you send everybody to contest the Oni Fury because you're realizing that the game might be slipping away. Or 2, you have Zatz split push and you don't contest it. But they kind of split the difference, and they're trying to split Phantom Ghoul wide open.
Yeah, Yeah, Zats tries to split over here and will at least take the trade. ADC for ADC. Gotta think that favors Daddy's Daycare, especially when the Trebuchet's over on that side of the map. Meanwhile, Tomcat trying to defend the mid tower against 3. That's doing a little bit of damage over on the left-hand side as well. That polyproc coming through, and he finds the last auto in Tricked. What a misplay, falling for no reason. They can't be giving up their lives like that.
Isn't it just nuts how much damage that polyproc can do, though? And we're not even at the point, Frog, where that's doing actual damage right now. Like, this is level 18 Chronos with only 3 items. And one of them isn't even, like, a big boy Ratatouille power item. That's a Divine Ruin in that slot, Frog. And now he's got the Karen's coin available. There are 2 things that this build does. 1, it kills gods, and 2, it kills towers. And then anything else in the middle just kind of falls to the wayside just because you're Chronos. We're getting to the point where not level 19 on the Tomcat and level 19 on Zats is going to start mattering in these fights.
Yeah, we are getting up there in terms of the levels, and we were talking about this 5,000 gold lead just a couple of minutes ago, but it hasn't gotten any bigger. If anything, it's gone down a little bit. I mean, this graph has relatively stabilized and even bounced back a little bit in terms of the experience for the side of Daddy's Daycare. They found the picks when they needed to. They found a successful fight over on the left-hand side. Still, all of the objective pressure, though, is coming from Molly's Demons, and sure enough, you see them grouped up over on this right-hand side. This Pyromancer's under pressure.
Yeah, it's going to be Daddy's Daycare pulling this one, but the response from the Demons is enough to dissuade them. Meanwhile, left-hand side of the map, it's still ADC on ADC, but this is just not fair. Like, Control-Alt-I-8 is 4 levels down on Phantom Ghoul. This is not an ISO play that benefits Daddy's Daycare, but Zats is here on the scene.
Yeah, he is towards this left-hand side, hoping to be able to get this shutdown kill onto Phantom Ghoul. Got it a little bit earlier, would like to keep him out of the fights a little bit longer. Now level 20 looking to back and gift that upgraded starter online, as we're starting to see those come into the game as we're on the border of a couple of level 20s. Although I will say, for the 3-level deficit you see in the ADC role, ahead everywhere else almost is Daddy's Daycare. But hold that thought. Pyromancer gets pulled. Zotes takes them off the objective and makes a little bit of space. Will have the Pillar of Agony forced out, gets the heal, and the Eagles rally, and the Typhoon all combine to take down the Soul Laner. Rewind gets forced as well, and again, both of the tanks are taken down with the objective. Molly's Demons repeating history and perhaps hopping on the Fire Giant.
Yeah, they're going to start pulling this one. No ADC for Daddy's Daycare. That's in left lane. Mid laner and jungler continuing to just split push their way through this game and pretty much just hoping against all hope that scaling is going to bring it home in this one, because they are not winning any of the fights right now. That is pretty abundantly clear to anybody watching this game, that these fights are absolutely favoring the Demons every single time. But again, if Daddy's Daycare can manage to hang on, they do have scaling on their team. But you know, Frog, they gotta get there, and the Demons aren't gonna let them get there very easily.
HD Clutch is slowing down the backs here on the left-hand side, and Tomcat still is not made his way back to base. It's a 4v4 over here towards the mid lane, and Tomcat, no rewind available for a couple more seconds, trying to stay alive, but HD Clutch finds the solo kill, but is not there to help out the 4v4. Zats does survive with the Grand Joust taking him to safety, as Desto is not happy with that and dives the tower just barely off the mark, but a teleport in from HD Clutch brings him to his grave. He dives in completely alone, and as opposed to what could have been a Phoenix Siege, they trade tier 2 towers and 1 life apiece, and it might even be more.
Yeah, Xup gonna have to hoop his way on out of this one, and does have support from the Chang'e, and Beads will allow him to walk out of the Hades ult. But Frog, I would love to see an instant replay on that play where Zats manages to squeak out with like 1 HP after HD Clutch suicides at him, because I thought for sure that Scourge was going to be the killing blow onto the Lancelot, but apparently the shield was enough to keep him alive from, I don't know, mounting the horse or something. But the Demons are mounting an assault on this Primal Fury, and you know, Daddy's Daycare are here, but they don't look very happy about the idea of contesting.
They're local, although they do still not have their soul laners. They will secure, and they're trapped.
What an man.
He's huge to force the jungler in another direction, and that direction will lead 6 feet under as X-Up makes another huge play that'll lead to an advantage for Molly's Demons.
I'm trying to tell you, this kid is cracked on this Yemoja. You absolutely cannot let him get this in game number 3, but, you know, we're still in game 2, Frog, and still 10,000 gold in favor for Molly's Demons, and they're still adding to their coffers now. They'll take a tier 2 tower and at least flirt with the idea of going for this Phoenix, and they've got a little bit of a window with Zots being dead.
Still is a 4v4. Royal goes in, and this time goes in before Zotes, but Zotes, no Pillar of Agony available. I don't know if he thought he had it, so he blinked in, but he just slows down the engage, and they lose the support for virtually nothing. Bellona split pushing that tier 2 tower in mid, not even needed for this Phoenix Sage, and Phantom Ghoul has no interest in the Phoenix. He wants the kill, and he'll find the kill. Zotes back from base, now has the ultimate available, but will not be able to treat. Only takes one with the Phoenix shot and is able to slow things down just a little bit as Zots has now respawned from the Phoenix, but I'm not sure they'll be able to defend this.
Yeah, damage has been done. One member missing, but they are still going to go in. Chonga will immediately stun out too. 1 HP left on the Tomcat, but he gets out on the left-hand side. Meanwhile, Zots is fighting off the rest of the team. Horasolt will not be able to save him.
This guy comes from base to try and help out the carry. Tomcat is able to survive, but can't say the same for the left Phoenix, cannot say the same for the middle Phoenix, as this will turn into a successful siege for Molly's Demon. They'll get out scot-free. Only one member taking a spill in trade for all the towers on the map, and 2 Phoenixes. Sets up perfectly for the next objective.
And we had this gold lead start to stall out a little bit, as you called it, around that 13 to 15 minute mark, where it looked like Daddy's Daycare were in the driver's seat again. They got that one really good fight around the Gold Fury pit. We started to think that maybe that was the beginning of the end for the siege from the Demons, but man, they have been demonic and unrelenting in their pressure in this game number 2. Now up to 13,000 gold. 2 Phoenixes already down, and notably the left and middle, which makes it so tough to really step up and defend this Fire Giant. And honestly, Frog, not enhanced Fire Giant quite yet. You're still looking to finish a couple of more items for Daddy's Daycare. I don't know if I can really say that it's in their best interest to try to step up to this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's not enhanced Fire Giant, as you mentioned, so it's not going to be the end of the game automatically. Certainly, if they pick up this Fire Giant, it's definitely potential for them to, you know, have the successful siege on the right hand side. But I mean, I'm not convinced that things can get much worse whether they have the Fire Giant or not, because that objective is not going to change the fact that you have 2 Phoenixes down, and it's certainly not going to change the fact that you have to defend against a monster composition. But
they
like
want
they're
it.
gonna fight into this. So the Sky's coming in early, and the Hulks come through. They are not able to steal it away, but Tomcat takes down the first.
And that's not going to be the last either. Zote's still very low, eventually taken out by Entricked, and Royal's going to be next to fall.
He will be traded out, but Phantom Ghoul finding the 1v1 on the backline will win it, and a double kill for Entrick. They find the Fire Giant, and they show the enemy team exactly why they shouldn't have contested that Fire Giant. They will seal the deal with a deicide, and we are going to a game 3.
We are going to game 3, but it's not going to be in one-to-one fashion, Frog. It is going to be a long and arduous climb if Daddy's Daycare are going to end up clawing their way back into this one. 0-1, or excuse me, 0-2 so far. And, you know, I talked about at the desk of game number 2, we need to see a different look from Daddy's Daycare for this duo lane. Control-Alt-I-Eat is consistently getting pressured out by X-Up. Not only in ADC, Frog, now also in support. X-Up has made the ADC gap happen on the left-hand side of the map. So I don't know what kind of changes they can possibly make. Obviously, I think banning the Yemoja going to be a good start, but you've got to find some way to stem the bleeding in the long lane, because that's where all of this advantage is really coming from in the early game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not convinced. I'm totally with you that you cannot let this Kimoja go over to X up. That is too powerful of a character, too much pressure that you're bringing on that one pick. Royal looked pretty good on the Emoja, so perhaps you're able to take it for yourself. But I'm thinking, it has to be some sort of gameplay switch up, regardless of these jungle picks. You've seen Zots potentially on the more aggressive jungler in both games. Here in game one and game two. Game two, it's a little bit closer, but even in game one, when they had the serious aggression advantage on this mannequin to Osiris, we still see Desto is the one more often forcing these engagements. And even when Zots finds the engagements, it's oftentimes on the solo side of the map, and Zotes just has not been able to do enough in either game. Credit to him for potentially being the most impactful member on his
Yes.
team through both of those games, but you're just not getting enough from letting your ADC control Altair. He cannot be that far down in game number two. There has to be, or in game number three, there has to be some sort of adaptation.
Yeah, and it's not. I don't feel right putting that on Zotes either, right? Like it's unfair to say that the man has to carry the world on his shoulders because as much pressure, as much gold, as much farm, as much experience, as much lead as you can give this solo laner, it's still only one character. And I do think that it's gotten to the point where you have to make it a team effort to dedicate resources to making sure that the Molly's Demons duo lane doesn't just spiral out of control. They have played with pressure and they've played with a lead out of duo lane both of these first two games. You gotta make some kind of switch up and see what they can do without both of those things.
We'll see if they're able to make that switch up in game number three and continue to push this series on. Backs up against the wall, nowhere to go. We get a chance to see how they react. We'll be right back after this break with that game three. Welcome back, Smite fans, into this game number 3. Daddy's Daycare going up against Molly's Demons. And after a convincing game number 2 and a hard-fought game number 1, I'm hard-pressed not to favor Demons at least a little bit going into this game number 3. I mean, they put on a show in game number 2.
Yeah, they were coming in as number 1 seed. They were coming in undefeated, and you're like, well, surely grand finals is the kind of time where a team like this gets dethroned. Like, it's the Tom Brady choke in the Super Bowl kind of thing. But so far, the Demons have looked nigh untouchable in this one. There was a lot of back and forth in game number 1, but pretty much after 20 minutes in game number 1 and all through game 2, it has looked all Demons all the time. And we're getting to the point, Frog, where if I don't see some kind of specific change made to allow Control Alt I to be able to breathe in dual lane, I'm going to start flipping some stuff in my room.
There is definitely an adaptation that needs to be made. Maybe even, multiple adaptations. They could change several things about their draft.
That's true.
But,
they could.
We are ready to jump right into picks and bans for game number 2. And we are already seeing these bans start to come out. No changes thus far, and I'm not convinced you need a picks and bans change, except perhaps the Emoja, as we've mentioned several times. And at this point, it is the exact same bans that come across the board. 4 Assassins, Maui, Ishtar, all taken away. This time they're back in the first pick slot, though. Last time they let the Emoja go, they picked the Chronos. They've got a chance to put Royal back on this pick, and I liked the Emoja coming out, but instead they picked for duo pressure. And at the same I can't necessarily fault the logic. It's at least a step in the right direction.
Frog, I don't know if they experienced the same game that I just watched. Because if that's me, I'm full stop taking Emoja or banning it away. And that's just the end of that conversation. Like, the Kernanos is fine. It's a good pressure pick in duo lane. That's what I was asking for. But the fact that you're letting X-Up play this Emoja again over Naja in the jungle, which is fine, but it didn't just blow you out of the water, no pun intended, in game number 2, I think you at least make them prove that they play Naja.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely could have taken something away. Oh,
surely he doesn't not pick it here.
This is a question mark, right? Because I mean, after the Emoja gameplay in game number 2, you can't not go back to it, right? I mean, maybe you want a little bit of spice. You got 2 games to throw away potentially, so you could bring a little bit of spice, but surely they just no. Okay, all right. They go back to the Ymir.
Yep, sure.
He's trying to come from game number 1. We had some fantastic walls from him, not on support,
right?
But his Ymir, the Ymir was on his team,
correct?
Right. So trying to recreate the game,
I just feel like this is some kind of social experiment, and I'm the only one not in on the joke. And like everyone else is like, oh, we're gonna watch Kaizo mauled over the fact that they don't even pick Emoja after literally carrying the game on it. And again, I have seen X-Up play a pick other than Emoja before, and it has been good. But I don't think it's been as transformative as the experience we had in game number 2, where it was just like the Grand Canyon between the supports. And that's not even to say Royal played bad, because Royal played good. It was just that much of a difference. And I don't know. I'm mauling over here, Frog, but Vulcan Ao Kuang, we've seen a little bit of this Ao Kuang in the playoffs here for the SPL, Frog. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what this pick's been doing?
I don't think I'm allowed to tell you because I don't think you've seen the games. I think I have to keep it. It on the down low, and I think all of our viewers actually have seen the games as well. So I think we're all in the loop on what this Ao Kuang is able to do. My more interesting pick is about this Vulcan, something that we did not see in the SWC qualifier matches, but something that we will see putting a little bit of pressure on the enemy team here. And these mid laners both picked up in this 3rd pick slot, although granted, you still have a little bit of flex potential with the Chronos, but after the Chronos being up, and I'm not even sure I'm unhappy with the performance from Tomcat in game number 1. Like, he was ahead on the
Right.
Chronos. He was hitting hard when he got the chance to, but not a huge fan of having to wait that long for his damage. Wanted a little bit more early pressure, opts into the Vulcan.
Yeah, Kronos certainly was not the issue in game number 2. Make no mistake about that. And I do think that Vulcan is a character that you can pretty much categorically expect a mid laner to play and have good results on. It's very difficult to lock this character down. A lot of self-peel. That knock up at the feet is very strong. Good spacing abilities as well, capable of dealing damage from a long way away. And a lot of the times when games are fairly close, when games are balanced and you have to take big, structured, objective fights in order to get to the point where you can win the game, a mage with a big secure ult gets a lot more value. So I don't hate the fact that they're taking the Vulcan, giving themselves the Earthshaker to secure these objectives and make it a little bit easier to, even if you fall behind, have some kind of steal potential on the field as opposed to just time rift over the wall and hoping that it works.
Yao Kwang as well, bringing the execute to the table to take down potentially one of these tankier targets as they try and deal damage through these fights. But as we see the bans come through the second time around, looks like they are convinced that this Chronos is going mid, so they take 2 Hunters off the table. Good matchups into Chronos we see with the Cupid, but notably Hu Yi still on the table. Saw some sparks there in game number 1, but instead it'll be this Danza Burrow looked at. The Pharah special coming through, and the furry creature makes his way onto the battlefield. As looking towards the last couple of picks, I hope this Giannis is not going to go through, but if it does, you get to analyze it.
I do. That is a true statement. So for the time being, we'll buy a bit of time by talking about this Danza Burrow, because Danza is a character that does not really lose matchups. All of his matchups are either A, even, or B, winning. And I think the only particular example I can give of one matchup that Danza Burrow loses is on her. And we saw a little bit of that yesterday, but at least in this one, there's no on her to be seen. Kurnanos is one that you can reasonably fight into, and that's not something a lot of characters can say. Kurnanos is a known lane bully right now because his burst is so crazy high. He's got good sustain, good poke. He can clear the wave effectively. Danza Burrow is one of the few gods that can actually contest him in that regard and make a meaningful impact on the duo lane. And it looks like, Frog, I've talked long enough that they did not lock in a Giannis.
Well, they still haven't locked in that support pick quite yet, so we could still see a Giannis support. And I'm gonna keep talking about it until we get that lock in. Giannis hovered. Giannis hovered once again. We could potentially brings a lot of utility to the table. You know, that global ultimate could come through and help out. Instead, I think likely
God, I don't ask you for a lot.
Or more something a little bit more traditional. I will say they were hovering the Geb for a bit. I'm not sure I would have been a fan of that pick, but at the very least, they do pick up this Mercury. Oh, lovely. The Geb comes back around.
Caster's
and I'm not convinced, man. I mean, you're not bringing a lot of pressure to the dual lane to help out this Kurnos. Now, granted, I'm not sure you need a ton of pressure into this Danza Burrow, but the shield, the cleanse of CC, it helps out with the Ymir freeze, but Hades diving you in a fight, you're not cleansing the vortex the same way. I'm not sure you get the pressure, and then you have 2 late game roamers, Geb and Mercury, both trying to wait past that 15-minute mark to make the most impact against a lot of pressure on the other side.
Yeah, and it does kind of hamstring your ability to fight in the dual lane, which you do have with a Kurnanos. Like, he's very good in a 2v2 fight. He's also good in a 1v1 fight, but I think that he gets even more value in the 2v2. So I don't hate the Geb, unlike you. I think that there's good sense to be made here for a counter initiation composition. Like, you want the Vulcan to get dove, as weird as it sounds, because all of his best work is done either at max range, where you can't even get to him, or right underneath his feet, where he doesn't have to aim any of his damage. And Geb is going to be very effective at keeping Tomcat alive on this pick and allowing him to get more casts off. not to mention the fact Hades has to dive in, Lancelot has to dive in, this Ymir likely to be walking forward into the teeth of this team, you can get a lot of good counter initiation off with this Gebel. I think that there are worse picks that they could have grabbed here, but I do think that there's at least a silver lining.
No, at the very least, they are able to get some comfort onto the board, and with the amount of frontline pressure that you potentially have, this Ao Kuang going to be constantly in the front line trying to deal damage. You get 2 auto attackers up there, and sure enough, we are ready to jump right in to game number 3 and see how this comp plays out. And notably, I mean, the Ao Kuang is the one thing that maybe we brushed past on the desk. I purposefully brushed past it. You tried to bring attention to it. I didn't let you. But now we can bring attention to it because it is mage versus mage over in the soul lane, although 2 extraordinarily different mages in terms of what they bring to the table.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right about that. Ao Kuang is just here to try to execute his lane opponent, and then if that doesn't work, he's just there to execute whatever frontliner is nearest to him in the team fight stage. Granted, you can build him a little bit more damagey and try to go for these backliner kills, but that's not typically what his identity is, to the best of my knowledge. I think that I'd much rather see him attempting to just finish off these frontliners and really get the value out of the ult on characters that don't have feeds. But, I say that all 5 members of the Molly's Demons have beats, which makes Sandman Sam Zotes a lot more difficult to really get value out of this pick and out of that execute. Meanwhile, across the way, HD Clutch, we talked about in game number 1, he's just clearing the wave and then rotating out. And he does not need to fight into the Sandman Sam Ao Kuang. This is a particularly dangerous matchup for the Ao Kuang if you can't get some kind of lead early.
Well, it will be almost, essentially an assassin over there in the soul lane, so potentially, more susceptible to that damage as action here in the mid lane will force the beads, but also forces Dots down to only 1 bar of health there as he heals back up a little bit with that health pot. But you can already see the action coming through, and that points us towards the mid lane where we see X up. Maybe the reason they don't go back to the Emoja is because he's not on the support role once again. He's back towards 3 roles, 3 different games. He's really traversing the map. If it goes to game 5, I expect to see him all the way on the right side of the map over in that soul lane. But first, he's got to lose here, and so far he hasn't been able to do that.
Yeah, he's kind of just climbing the list on the right-hand side of your screen. Like, he started at the bottom in ADC, then moved up to support, then he got promoted to mid lane. Next, he's just going to be taking Desto's job, and I think Desto's played quite well in this one so far, so we're going to have to see where they'll put him. But for the time being, they're going to be putting X up in the ground as First Blood goes the way of Daddy's Daycare.
Yeah, maybe finding a little bit more success in one of those duo lane roles, like in game 1, number 2, but taken off the board for First Blood on this Chronos. One thing I'm maybe not happy to see, compared to that death, is something I am happy to see, and that's Bo the Farmer back in the game, back on this Ymir. So he reprises the Ymir, perhaps due to that great gameplay he was able to have in game number 1. And we have to comment on the continued force of the walls coming through here in all 3 games. Game 1, we get Thor wall paired with Ymir wall, and then it's the River's Rebuke, and now we're back to the Ymir wall, and it's just the amount of control that they're able to have in these jungle fights has benefited Molly's Demons, hugely.
Yeah, and the wall is going to be very impactful in this one because the only person that's really going to be able to escape that one is Zotes on this Ao Kuang. Everybody else going to have to get Phantom Shelled their way through. That's likely the reason that Royal elects to go for the shell on the Geb, is to give themselves that Ghost Walk later into the game. But, I mean, for the time being, until you get that cooldown online, any fight in the jungle is susceptible to being shut down by Bo the Farmer at a moment's notice. So it gets much scarier. A little bit spooky in right lane here. Both of these soul laners looking for this first kill in their respective lanes, but looks like for the time being HD Clutch content to back up. Meanwhile, mid lane, it's going to be Tomcat again.
Tomcat putting himself on the board, this time finding it in a solo kill fashion. Meanwhile, still some damage you see over here on the right-hand side. Remember, this ultimate has come up for Zotes, but the beads through and the sustain coming through from HD Clutch means he does not have to be nearly as worried about that. But look at the Mercury lining up right now. Zot's looking for the ultimate and will use it just to the tower line, but HD Clutch not going to fall prey to that trap behind the tier 1 tower. Is able to stay alive, stay distanced from that. But meanwhile, Daddy's Daycare now perhaps the earliest of any games. They're the ones who were able to find themselves a 1,000 gold lead thanks to those 2 picks in the mid lane.
And this is so critical in longer sets like this, where you have to make the comeback 3 games in a row in this one in order to get to the end. Remember, this is a best of 5, so it's got to be 3 games to 0 if Daddy's Daycare want to end up taking it. You got to come out of the gates hard and willing to fight early. If you just sit on your hands, if you feel remorseful, if you just feel sorry for yourselves, then you're not going to have the energy, the momentum, the mental fortitude to really make it through a long set like this. I love the fact that they're willing to go in hard early on.
Bo the Farmer gets the ultimate used to secure that Interceptor and will do so successfully, so they'll keep this pressure over on the left-hand side. But I think interestingly, in this dual lane dynamic, you see a lot of pressure coming from Bo the Farmer on the Ymir pick, and a lot of pressure on the other side coming from the ADC pick. So they're going back and forth as to whether they want to find this fight, but nobody has been able to find a significant advantage outside of that mid lane, which has been very different from our last 2 games that have been pretty heavily focused around the side lanes. I wonder if that mid lane success is going to change the focus of either of these junglers as to how they want to try and turn this game towards those objectives as those bigger fights start to happen.
Well, it is certainly an option for Daddy's Daycare. I called them out and said, I need some kind of substantial change to allow Control-Alt-IE to feel more comfortable in this duo lane. And if that's shunting all of the aggression, all of the pressure, all of the attention to a different part of the map and letting Tomcat deal with all of the pressure on his shoulders, I guess that seems to work. And it could just be the fact that X-Up not in this duel and not available to exert his pressure over it, but whatever they're doing differently, it's definitely working. And again, it could be the roster change, and it could be aggression in mid as Lancelot and Ymir hunting down this Vulcan and Mercury.
Yeah, they're going to come behind both of these picks, find themselves in a 3v2, but the rotation from the get may be here in time. Tomcat forced to use the beads, Earthshaker in place, and the Mercury ultimate will get him out of there just in time. Tomcat using the passive perfectly to make a little bit of space as the rewind gets forced as well. The Soul Laners trying to make their impact in this fight, but an early beads from Desto is able to survive the ultimate from Zotes and takes him down in the process. The first kill on the board for Molly's Demon.
Yeah, answering back, and granted, that was absolutely Tomcat and Zot stepping too far forward, and it's unfortunately going to be Zotes that ends up falling as a result of it because he goes a little bit too hard trying to save his team. But it is definitely something to give to the Demons here when they desperately need some kind of foothold into this game. They played with pressure in games 1 and 2, and it worked out very well for them. Now they're playing from behind. And that can often be a very different mentality and a different approach you have to the game when you're not just working with a whole bunch of advantage. You have to fight tooth and nail for the first time in this 5-game set so far to get any kind of advantage out on the board. And I think that it's very critical that they're putting them in a position where you say, well, you've done this every single game and it's worked for you, but what if we don't let you do that? What if we change that X factor? And at least so far, I hate to sound dramatic, Frog, even though I do actually love it because I'm very melodramatic. Only 1K gold lead, but it's certainly something to start working with.
Yeah, I mean, Daddy's Daycare, first time that they've had a lead in this set, perhaps, certainly one of this caliber, but it's the fight starting over here on the right-hand side, and it's the 3v2 advantage that Demons have as well. Royal popping the shell, popping the shield, not enough to survive that joust, and it will be Control-Alt-I-Eat now under the pressure on this left-hand side. Tomcat finding the rotation over as it will not be any further pushing to try and steal that purple buff. But at the very least, we get some life out of Molly's Demons. They rotate over, they find a pick, they're back on the board.
Yeah, and I do think that it's worth paying attention to the fact that Zot's this time on the Mercury, which is a late game hyper carry and a very different look from what we've seen from him up until this point. It was the Osiris, then it was the Lancelot, these pseudo bruiser tankier junglers. This time he's going all in on the damage, and it looks like they're going to go all in on HD Clutch here.
Yeah, a little bit of damage coming there from Zotes as we see maybe his build not doing a ton of damage to the opposing mage off the bat right here. And I'd love to take a look at the builds and see how this early game is progressing and how these items are coming through. But might have to hold that thought as we may get yet another engagement on this right-hand side. Zotes waiting for the Geb shield to come through as Royalists found their way around the backside of the Fire Giant. Naka will slow down the aggression from HD Clutch, potentially saving the lights of Zotes there with the shield coming through. But as we slow things down, take a look at these builds. Interesting build specifically from Ao Kwang to not look for any of those mage starters and instead look for the death toll into automatically into the lifesteal. I mean, it's an interesting start to what is likely to be a more damage focused build out of this basically assassin soul laner.
So, to the best of my knowledge, and we'll wait here as Phantom Ghoul tries to take a 1v1 with Control Alt-I-E dash in there, and the rocket will get answered back by the Wild Hunt, but Royal is on the scene, and finally, it looks like Control Alt-I-E has managed to take one. Credit will go to Royal, but certainly a much better look for the Kernanos in this one than in the prior two games. But anyway, Frog, going back to what you were saying about this build for the Ao Kwang, to the best of my knowledge, this is fairly standard for this Ao Kwang solo. You want the Death's Toll to give you a whole bunch of sustain in lane. You've got a very short, very stubby, very quick auto attack chain where it's a lot of 0.5, 0.75, 0.25, but it comes out very quickly, which means you make good use of auto attack items, which is why you see the Death's Toll going into the Toxic Blade as well. And hang on a second, Beats forced out by HD Clutch. Zotes is making it happen.
Yeah, he's making it happen. I thought HD Clutch was in a little bit more danger there, but he heals back up to half HP with that one wave coming through. Hades Sustain is not fun to play against, but he does, you know, the clean solo kill from Zotes. I'm wondering if he's leveling that first ability at all, or if that base damage just comes through and helps him out a ton. Yeah, it's just the base damage. I just don't even know how much that does. He's able to predict the damage perfectly, find the solo kill onto HD Clutch, and that bodes well for how these fights are looking for Zotes as he's you know looking to transition probably pretty soon into these more group up.
Yeah, and notably, during that engagement, we saw Pyromancer go down in favor of Daddy's Daycare as well, so what was a 1,000 gold lead now ticking closer to 1,500 here. Also, Beads still being down is relevant on HD Clutch. He has Bancroft to give him a little bit more sustain and make these executes a little more difficult to come through, but certainly an option if Daddy's Daycare want to lean on this side of the map, but they'll have to do so fairly carefully, understanding that the Demons know that the Gold Fury is up. We're at the point in the game, Frog, where you can start to look toward this objective more meaningfully. About 2 items finished for just about everybody on the field. This is when your damage is enough that if you get a window, you can take down that objective.
Yeah, and those items coming through with some serious power spikes for some of these players. Flat penetration going to be online for these mid laners, but hold that thought. We find a fight, a great shield and a sonic boom gets Zots out of danger there. Pairs with the ultimate from the jungler to at least, oh gosh, thank God. I was worried there,
Easy
okay?
there.
I mean, it was a little bit too close for my liking, but they will survive the engagement and trade jungle ultimates there around this Gold Fury. And that shows you how much tension is just on this left side of the map. This is the longest I think we've gone in one of these, you know, any of these 3 games without this Gold Fury even being looked at, much less taken down. And that's, you know, the first time we get a grouping over on the left side, we almost see a kill instantaneously. And now we see the ward coverage trade out. But I mean, with having this first lead on the board, even if it's 1,500 gold, small as it is, you would think that they might want to try and force their hand a little bit and try it and find a good fight here.
Yeah, and the Daddy's Daycare team do, again, have that secure available to them. Earthshaker, certainly the largest single instance of damage on the map, at least that you can queue up at a moment's notice. So going to be in their favor should they look for any of these dice roll fights, but the Demons are here and are willing to fight for these Oracles, and looks like they're going to go ahead and try to pull them, but everybody's here.
A 4-man fight over towards these Oracles is looks like 4-man only for the red squad. Earthshaker comes through and almost takes down both the farmer. Control Tight helps secure that kill, but look for HD Clutch on the backside. They've got him warded out, and Zotz is going to be able to catch him potentially with the dash, but instead Control Tight, the huge auto attack cancel, takes him down to almost no HP, forces the blink out of the Soul Laner, and all of the pressure immediately goes towards Daddy's Daycare. They found one, they'll find another one. Next up gets taken up into the air, and it looks like a clean fight and a Gold Fury reward for Daddy's Daycare.
And I love to talk about good support gameplay, and we certainly saw it there. Royal steps up and baits out half to 75% of his health bar and gets frozen, but in return, he gets off a crucial 4-man Gebel to start off that engagement. That allows a perfect avenue into that fight for Control Alt-IE to step forward more confidently. Tomcat drops a huge ult down onto Bo the Farmer, and an excellent rotation in from both Zotes and Zotz, trying to say that 2 times fast, and managing to find these priority targets as quickly as possible. HD Clutch went in there, but the damage turnaround and the confidence from this Daddy's Daycare roster just completely shunted him out of the fight from the moment he stepped foot into it. This is a much, much different look from this Daddy's Daycare team. Their attitude toward this game seems to have palpably changed from game 2 to game 3.
No, and I think you really see it in the ability of this solo jungle combination to come through and make their synergy known, right? Now that you get these two characters, Zotes and Zotz and Zotes and Zotz, on these more aggressive auto attack picks, they get themselves into the backline, and now they're both able to deal the damage. Right? I mean, it's not like Zotes is hesitating to be the one to take down a member. They can both shred down a carry as fast as the other, and now that especially Mercury has that rage online, it's gonna be looking for even more aggression. But Zotes shut down early on in this game, right before this Pyromancer spawns, and this is already looking like a good position for the Demons.
Yeah, Desto looking for a little more here, but won't be able to find it just yet. Gonna back up to this Pyromancer, but they got the Earthshaker Frog.
They take away an ultimate from the other side, as it will still be the Earthshaker coming through, not able to secure. Demons do manage to secure that, but they are susceptible to a 3-man Cataclysm, and the Sonic Boom not on time to take advantage of that. That could have been a very dangerous combination of ultimates there from Daddy Daycare. They just barely missed the mark, and they will lose the objective as a result. But maybe a solo kill here on the left side. Control Alt-IE trying to force this one out. A great Aegis body box and turn around.
Nice.
No way. Control Alt-IE showing the dominance here in game number 3. He has turned things around from the first 2 games.
And words out of my mouth completely, Frog, because this is looking like a completely different ADC for Daddy's Daycare, and they're not the team that's been swapping around their ADC. It's been Control Alt-IE every single game, but he's playing with so much more confidence, so much more zeal in game number 3, and frankly just taking these 1v1s to Phantom Ghoul.
Yeah, a lot of pressure here, continuing to try and force their hand is Daddy's Daycare. You see the Soul Laner over here on this side of the map. Gold Fury is not even close to spawning. They're just looking for another couple of picks. But this rotation, despite the fact it's not going to get anything now, you sort of get a glimpse into the mindset of how Daddy's Daycare is looking to use this lead. 4,000 gold they find themselves in the hands, and certainly are in control of the reins of this game. And as a result, oh my goodness, the Sonic Boom not even having to be used. He just finds the complete solo kill on HD Clutch. And I wish we could have seen what happens there. How does Zotz find that and remain full HP, no ultimate used? He is shredding right now.
Well, I can tell you exactly what happened, even if it was off camera. We'll wait as Tomcat gets frozen beads forced out here. Zot's actually still going in, so we might have to wait a little bit longer. They'll try to turn around some damage, but it's going to be Zot's headbutting a wall at the end of that one. Everybody turns their attention elsewhere, but this Hades does one thing pretty consistently. He jumps on the wave or silences the wave, and then uses his main damage tool. So all Zots has to do is wait to catch HD Clutch unawares when he doesn't know that he's in that side of the jungle, wait for those two tools to be down, and then it's a fairly reasonable solo kill. It's still a mage. It's still a full damage, no protections mage at the end of the day. Even if it's still a Hades, you can still one-shot him with a whole bunch of crit.
Well, it's now Daddy's Daycare looking to continuously force this lead. 4 members from either squad here at the enemy red buff, and not going to be positioned well enough to force that fight. They were looking for a pick, were not able to find one, but this Gold Fury spawning in just a couple of seconds, and both solo laners well out of their lanes to try and be ready to contest this one. I will say, though, Molly's Demons grouped up here first. It may be Daddy's Daycare late to the fight.
Yeah, they've got the numbers and they've got the aggression. It looks like Daddy's Daycare, though, are taking their attention to the Fire Giant Frog. Knowing that the Demons are doing Primal, they're just going to try to burst this down. The Demons are coming, and it's going to be close.
They've got the Shred to do it, have some crit in the tank. 3 auto attackers here taking down the Fire Giant, and it's already down to 20% HP. They're looking for it. They're not there in time. Daddy's Daycare trade the Gold Fury for the Fire Giant, and no steal is even able to be attempted as they time it perfectly. I mean, that is composition used to perfection, and they are firmly in control of this game.
Absolutely, and we didn't even get to chat about it even yet. This Daddy's Daycare roster is so good at burning those objectives. You've got the Vulcan turret, you've got a crit jungler, you've got a basically full damage solo laner, and you've got a seems to be, yes, crit ADC, all at your disposal to burst down those objectives, plus the secure on the end from the Vulcan. You cannot leave this composition alone with an objective, and it looks like Molly's Demons learned that the hard way. They thought that they were very confident in being able to just walk over to the Primal Fury, thought the same thing we thought at first, like the Daddy's Daycare roster is not at Primal. And that's because they were just sneaking their way to the right-hand side of the map. Just incredible heads-up play from Daddy's Daycare. They are clearly still mentally engaged in this very long set and putting themselves in a good position now with Fire Giant, with 3,000 to 4,000 gold in the lead to begin sieging down this left-hand side.
And I'm not sure I'm loving the defense from Molly's Demons. Essentially a double ADC composition, no clear AoE wave clear that you're able to take down the minions with as easily as they flood into these towers, but it will be a split push attempt, a 4-2 or 3-2 split rather, attempted towards this left side and mid side, and looks like they've got a couple more members on this left side right now for Demons to try to defend this, but I think playing it slow is definitely the right call here. You've got plenty of time on this Fire Giant, or not, or they just blink in and look for the Earthshaker, and Phantom Ghoul is not able to participate in the fight as well. Royal gets taken down in trade, but Tomcat finds one, Zots finds another, and this ADC, or rather jungle solo duo lane, has made it into the backline successfully. Zots just barely, he rewinds, just he can't hit anything. He finally hits the ability and is looking to trade one back if he can. The beads get forced, but his life will be taken and trade, and a 4-for-2 will lead to a Phoenix for Daddy's Daycare.
Yeah, you say that HD Clutch is still here, does still have the ult and the beads available, and no real frontline available for Daddy's Daycare. They have to still be careful. Hades could blow him up.
Yeah, it does have Pillar of Agony available, and Bo the Farmer is back from respawn, but
goodbye.
Oh man, I don't know. He does not have enough in the tank, and Bo the Farmer here trying to delay things as long as he can, but you're absolutely right. They're lacking that traditional tank. It's full damage out of the soul laner, and that sacrifice from HD Clutch is going to buy enough time. Members respawn. They live to survive another day. At least the Phoenix lives to survive another day, namely, and they're able to keep all their structures on the map.
And I love it. I love it when players are willing to sacrifice themselves selflessly to facilitate an opportunity like that. That does not show up on the end game slash line. That won't show up on any scoreboard, but that's certainly the correct play, as sad as it looked from HD Clutch to go in and just, you know, put one last salute to the boys and go down for that Phoenix, because now that doesn't allow Daddy's Daycare to use that pressure for this next Fire Giant, which is due to respawn in about a minute and 30 seconds or so. They're going to have to fight all in 5v5 once more, and, you know, you can steal one objective away from the Demons, Frog, but I don't think that they're going to let Daddy's Daycare just walk up slowly and down smash any more Fire Giants.
Yeah, no, I mean, they definitely have a route back into this game. All Phoenixes survive. Still 2 tier 2 towers up on the map, and this isn't enhanced Fire Giant. There's no clear victory in mind. Even if you do find a deicide here for Daddy's Daycare, I'm not sure that you're able to immediately find a game win here at 25 minutes in. There's just not enough of a lead, not enough damage necessarily in the tank, especially if they take a couple members with them in that deicide process, but certainly enough to be able to contest this Fire Giant is Molly's Demons, right? And I think they have a much better jungle fight than they do have a siege defense, so I'd be hard pressed to find them not set up for this objective spawn.
Yeah, you really can just stand around and fish for these walls from Bo the Farmer, and it should be Phantom Shell online by now for Royal on this Geb, which allows them a little bit more credence to walk around. But as I say that, no Phantom Shell upgrade, which makes these jungle fights so much scarier for Daddy's Daycare. But they're playing with all the pressure in the world. They have house money, Frog. What can they do with it?
Fire Giant down to half HP here and looking for the secure is blink in from HD Clutch, and everybody is off the Fire Giant, but Royal secures the kill onto the Soul Laner. Testo dives a little bit too far into the backline, and they lose 2 members for nothing. Make it 3 as they're continuing to dive, but nobody wants to step up and contest. Instead, it'll be the 3rd finally taken down as both supports fall, but the Fire Giant falls along with it, and X-Up will be taken down as well. No time for the rewind to be gotten off, and the alternate timeline means it's essentially a deicide and maybe a 6th kill if they can find Phantom, but a huge swing to hold on to that lead for Daddy's Daycare.
But, you know, Frog, tell me if you've heard this one before. No frontline available for this Daddy's Daycare roster. They've got Ao Kwong, but no Geb because he stepped up to zone. That might make it more difficult for them to end here, but I say that Tomcat's putting out big boy numbers.
Yeah, I'm not sure that you're relying on your ADC to solo defend this. Luckily, you get a couple of spawns. Now it would be a 4v4 in the Titan room, and Daddy's Daycare smartly step away. They do get themselves a couple of structures in the process. Tier 2 tower, Phoenix taken down. They'll grab this Oni Fury as well and have those Oni fire waves pushing down that mid lane. Not to mention a bunch of gold in the pocket of all of these players, likely to get some serious power spikes online on this back to base.
And taking a look at this player damage chart, or not, oh my god, I'm gonna do that every single time. Frog is your name, Zots is the name of the jungler, and Zotes is who I was trying to get to on this Ao Kwong. I've talked about the fact that no frontline once this Geb dies, but that doesn't really matter when your solo laner's helping put out 20,000 damage, which is, by the way, about 2 times what the jungler has done so far for either team. It is leagues away from anyone else on the side of Molly's Demons, who don't seem to be able to find a home for any of their damage. Every single person on the Molly's Demons roster is quite far down as compares to the blue numbers on your screen, and I think it's just credit to the fact that Daddy's Daycare are taking very intelligent fights. Every single time it's just been Zotes going in at the same time as Zots, or counter-engaging with the Gebolt, or surging forward off of one pick from Tomcat, finding somebody isolated in the jungle. They've played this so much better than games 1 and 2, and they might be in a position to start winning this game number 3.
Look at how they're splitting across the map. It puts them at risk here as they are at a 3v4 over here. Could be even a 3v5 on this left side Phoenix, but they are having Zotes in the middle lane, pushing up this fire wave. So a little bit of pressure could come from behind the Phoenix there. Royal finds their way in. A good Cataclysm locks down a couple, and Earthshaker follows up half HP for almost every member here on the side of the Demons, and they have to return to base or risk an aggression attack here on the left-hand side, and that's certainly what it's going to be. Zot's taking up the Phoenix a little bit. This Sonic Boom looking for a spot to come in, charged up and trying to find a couple here as he's looking to line it up, but that threat just keeps them away. They're not willing to pass the imaginary line that the Sonic Boom is creating, and they just let the Phoenix go.
And I tried to talk about it like 6 or 7 minutes into this game, but I think this is such a better pick for Zots with the playstyle he's been doing. He's been essentially taking 1v1, split pushing, isolating himself, looking for structures, splitting the map every single game so far in this set. And I don't know that Lancelot and Osiris are necessarily the characters for it, but something like this Mercury that poses a significant threat to these structures and also has good quick rotation from wherever he's at back into the team fight has looked so much more effective in this game number 3. He doesn't even need to be the superstar, crit everybody to death, do it all by myself jungler. Just the threat of activation, as you were talking about with that Mercury ult, makes Molly's Demons second guess themselves on that siege. And that's really all Daddy's Daycare needed with the pressure they already had in left lane, with the dominance that they were exerting over that Phoenix. Again, they just are playing so much smarter in addition to mechanically better in this game number 3 that, Frog, I'm pretty sure we're going to be heading to a game number 3 and they might have enough left in the tank to take it all the way.
No, I totally agree that we're heading to a game number 3. I mean, I think you are right on the money with that quote. So, I mean, we could be heading to a game number 4 as well, you know, for sure.
4,
but,
yes. Oh my God.
Potentially...
Oh, you're memeing me. I'm so slow. I didn't pick up on that until I heard production in my ear.
Oh, no. Absolutely memeing just a little bit. But I think you're absolutely right with
game number aside, I think that my thought still stands. Daddy's Daycare looking hella good in whatever this game number is.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you're absolutely right on the call. They get to lean in a little bit more to the macro play, right? You get to find plays exactly like that Fire Giant trade because of what your comp is designed to do. And sure enough, they're set themselves up for victory here. An enhanced Fire Giant, uncontested, 2 Phoenixes down. I mean, this is a 99%er for Daddy's Daycare, and they're still taking the time to push up this mid lane.
Yeah, still doing their homework, making sure that they cross all the T's and dot all of the I's. And I think it's Vengeance that likes to say, or no, it's SSB that says that's how you win a team fight, is crossing your T's and dotting your I's. And they're already going for it, it seems like. Zotes is already in, despite the fact that they're pushing up and left. They want this bird ASAP.
Look at HD Clutch on the side, trying to find the blink and will grab the ADC, but dashing out is the ADC, and turning it around is Zots, finding the double kill onto the diving members of Demons. They take a 1 for 4, make it a 1 for 5, as once again the ultimate doesn't come through in time, and Zots picks up the quadra kill this time around. It is a dominant game 3, a huge bounce back, taking us to game number 4.
And I said, Zots doesn't have to be the guy to kill everyone and crit everyone to death, and then he immediately drops a quadra kill to win the game in game number 3. And at this point, Frog, I'm starting to think maybe I just need to start casters cursing myself into some winning lottery numbers or something, because I have been wrong every single take I've had on this broadcast so far.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with that. I can't argue with that. I'm not sure I have any more analysis to add to that. I think certainly we have to be going to a game 5 because you said you weren't. Like, I'm not sure this game 4 necessarily.
Can you imagine?
I'm not sure this game necessarily matters. This next game 4, but at the very, we got to give them the credit, right? They won 2 games, right? Certainly they can adapt. And at this point, you know, we get a game 4. We're surely going to see Xsup rotate into that jungle role. Maybe has a little bit more success than you know, when he's on the Chronos there in that mid lane, because I'm not sure any aspect of that composition was really working for the Demons there.
And that's such a feels bad for X Up as well, because obviously they're having some roster availability issues here. I don't think that you're voluntarily taking X Up out of either one of those dual lane roles with the performance that he had in either game and putting him in the mid lane, because frankly it just did not look as good on the mid as he did in either dual lane role. But at some point you have to work with what you have available. And I think that Daddy's Daycare, if you want to draw that narrative, have done a much better job of making use of the pieces of their roster that they have available. Tomcat stepped in off rolling and walked into the mid lane and said, "Give me Vulcan and let's try to win this game." And immediately did top player damage in the lobby and really drove it home for his team, allowing a lot of these objective plays, pumping out the damage into the frontliners, and surviving through a lot of the aggression from Molly's Demons. I think that he's played quite well from this game number, like late game 2 into early game 3. Tomcat has looked fantastic.
We'll have to see if Molly's Demons can hold on and end it in 4 games, or if Daddy's Daycare can push us to an all-deciding game number 5 right after this break. We'll see you on the other side. Welcome back, Smite fans, to potentially some action tonight, but more likely action tomorrow. Unfortunately, we are not going to be able to bring you the rest of this set tonight due to some issues on our end. But we will absolutely make sure that this set gets broadcasted. You are not going to want to miss game 4 and the mystery game 5 if Daddy's Daycare are going to be able to take this set the distance, right? We still want to bring this action to you as soon as possible. We're going to try for latest 8 p.m. tomorrow night. Be on the lookout for some announcements to come through where you can catch the rest of these games. Like I said, apologies, of course, on our end for not being able to bring you the full set tonight, but we're doing our best and we absolutely plan on bringing you the action tomorrow night as soon as possible. That being said, get some rest. 11 o'clock on the East Coast. We were definitely about to burn the midnight oil going to this next game. So you get a chance to refresh, come into tomorrow, ready, grab some snacks for the exciting conclusion to this set, to the Tundra Division Finals. And we will see you tomorrow night.